like to call the village board meeting to order for Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky.
Here.
Trustee Service.
Here.
Trustee Paul.
Here.
Trustee Zerbal.
Here.
Trustee Atkinson.
Here.
Trustee Krieger.
Here.
Trustee Flukie.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. I have one change to the agenda. Before we start, I would like to create 4A. I would like to make a few comments before we have the open comment.
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend the agenda. For my comments, I just wanted to say we had a little bit of a communication dilemma with the large item pickup this week. And we have created a new calendar with new dates and some new information on, so anybody can go on the website and get that. We changed up the reporting system for large items. We now have everybody registering online, their address, and the items that they have for large item, and then we also have them register for brush pickup. A few people did not get the communication or didn't read the communication, so we had some issues with that. But the NFL draft is coming in April, so we want our community to look really good. So we will be doing a large item pickup next week. If you have any large items to be picked up, please put them by the curb by Monday morning at 6 a.m. And at some point during the week, they will be picked up. So we're doing a special pickup for the residents so that the community looks really great for the draft next month, because we're not having it in April because of the draft. So I just wanted that out there before we had any action on this stuff. So.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Do they have to register their site, or they're just going to go around the village and look?
Not for the March 31st
not for this one?
pickup.
Okay.
No, not for this
But in the
pickup.
future, they
In
will.
the future, people should go on to the website. There's a great big red button that says large item pickup, and there's another one that says brush pickup. So it's pretty simple, and then just list all your items and we'll get them all picked up. So.
Mary, we've had this on the news for some time, and we are doing a special pickup, like you said. Are we ever going to do another special pickup? You know,
No,
we're doing something above and beyond what we had told the public.
correct. But no, we're just doing this special pickup
One time.
this time because of the draft coming in April, and because a lot of people, didn't read the letter, like I didn't read some of my emails that I got. And so, anyway, yes. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to call me, 492-2301. Call me and we'll get it all explained. So hopefully we don't have any issues anymore. So it's a service that.
I guess a question that I have on this is, Joel, question for you. Has there been anything to be done to put some sort of sticker? Remember you maybe called that I mentioned, because people aren't getting the communications, and I feel if you put it on the garbage can, which they got to wheel out and wheel back in, people are going to at least see that. Now, are they all going to get it? No, but I think your percentage is going to be much higher.
Yeah, we haven't made any movements to date yet on the sticker, Jay, but that's something that we certainly look at. Obviously, with the special pickup, we're going to be issuing a press release. We've put some information on our website. We'll follow the same protocols that we've been doing for all the other communications with electronic newsletter, social media, so on and so forth. And then we do intend to issue another mailing at some point here after the draft, just reminding residents of the protocols for just registering the items for pickup with an updated calendar. And if stickers become available, we can certainly provide those at that time and have residents have that information handy.
I just think a sticker on the garbage can, which would be something, it's like, oh, what's this on my garbage can? At least they're gonna take a look at it. Are they gonna read it thoroughly? I don't know, but some of the other mails, especially right now at elections and that, I know everybody's getting their front door hammered constantly and that, and they're getting stuff in the mail. I don't know that a mailing's gonna make it effective. So anyhow, just a suggestion.
We're gonna also implement some other protocols during the pickup periods, just to provide us an opportunity to, if you will, provide a little bit of grace on some of the pickups for the first few months, and then provide some notification for those that leave items that are unregistered, so that we can use those as examples with education then.
Fair enough.
Okay. That's it. Okay, number 5, I need action on the minutes from the open and closed session from February 25th, 2025.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed. Motion carried. Number 6, comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. Must state your name and address. You're limited to 5 minutes. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named, and the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there anybody who would like to make any comments about items not on tonight's agenda? Anybody who'd like to make comments on items not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, moving on. Number 7, written communications and/or announcements. This is the fun part. Oath of office for our new public safety officers and the promotion of a lieutenant. Chief,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
So thank you. Village Board, I'd like to thank you for the support you've always given Ashwaubenon Public Safety, and especially tonight with a promotion, as well as 2 new officers that were swearing in with the Office of Oath that we'd like to have them recite tonight. So with further ado, I'd like Scott Hennessy to come forward. Get a little background on Scott, who is here with family, friends, and as we look in the back, the support we have from our department is incredible. So Scott here has been a public safety officer for 21 years. He served in our department in many capacities. He's a firearms instructor. He was a field training officer for 13 years, the mobile field force team for 10 years, and he served past benevolent treasurer. Scott strongly believes in the value of community, and giving back is something he truly believes. Scott's participated in the COPS Kids program for over 12 years. Every year he helps with the Santa ride. Just look at him. National Night Out and many other events. I only say that because I love the man. So Scott's been affectionately known as the Sarge with our department and with many of the officers. He applied for the lieutenant's promotion and went through and was selected. So tonight, he's no longer the Sarge, he's the lieutenant. So with that, Scott, we're gonna ask you the Office of Oath again. So I'm gonna ask if you would raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Scott Hennessy,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
to the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
and the purpose of evasion,
and the purpose of evasion,
and I will well
and I will well
very good, and faithfully discharge
faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Public Safety Officer
of Public Safety Officer
for the Village of Ashwaubenon,
for the Village of Ashwaubenon,
acting to the best of my ability.
acting to the best of my ability.
Outstanding. And I'm going to ask your wife, Azure, to come up and please pin on your lieutenant's badge. Now, when you do this, you can go ahead and poke him because he may not have done the lieutenant's last name. I kid. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Lieutenant, they may be married, Lieutenant Scott Hennessy.
Congratulations, Scott.
So now I'm going to ask Officers William Nimmer and Rafael Diaz Molina to come forward. You now have to do this. That's the lieutenant's position. So gentlemen, if you'd stand up here. So when I came back as interim chief in January, both these fine young gentlemen here were in the middle of their field training. And it was a delight to speak and meet and learn more about them and what they brought for our department. The eagerness, the dedication was second to none. This is what we want out of our officers. And again, gentlemen, if you look back there and see the support that you have from this department, that anytime you ever feel like you need something, there's your family. They're there to support you. So please remember that at all times. But if I could, I'd like to give a little bit of information on our two gentlemen here. So Rafael, badge number 776. Rafael was hired November 11th, 2024. He's a graduate of NWTC Law Enforcement Academy. We know he's eager to begin his career in law enforcement with us. He has the enthusiasm and commitment to public safety. We know he's going to be a great asset to our team. William Nimmer, badge number 777. William's also a graduate of NWTC Law Enforcement Academy and brings with him 1 year of law enforcement experience from West Milwaukee Police Department. We're thrilled to have him up here instead of down there. We hope, as he starts his career with us, that he continues to have the skills and dedication to Ashwaubenon public safety. So tonight, we're going to have both of you, again, with the oath of office. I'm going to ask you both to raise your right hand. And if you would, I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, that I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of a public safety officer for the village of Ashwaubenon, acting to the best of my ability. Congratulations. And tonight, your mother. Yes, thank you. We'll be pinning your badge on, and tonight your fiance Kendra will be pinning your badge on. Can I ask both of them to step forward, please? Same rules apply. You know, hey, have they been good? Go ahead. It's always the moment of truth. You can give them a hug. It's okay.
It only bleeds for a
Give
little
your mother a
while.
hug as well. Congratulations, sir. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the family. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nimmer, Mr. Diaz Molina, our newest officer. We'll take some pictures.
Welcome to the department. Glad to have you. Okay. Now, does anybody else have any comments or announcements? No? Okay. Number 8, action on consent agenda. A, consider, discuss, act on permanent Class B liquor license extension at Titletown. B, consider, discuss, act on Class A beer, Class A liquor license request for Vern's Cheese, Inc., DBA Vern's Cheese. C, consider, discuss, act on Lodge Kohler's NFL draft request to extend their liquor license premise. D, receive and accept the 2024 Stormwater Utility Annual Report. E, consider, discuss, act on the budgeted expenditures for periods between 2/19/2025 to 3/20/25. F, receive and accept February 2025 investment reports. G, receive and accept February 2025 financial reports. H, receive and accept March 2025 Public Works Department report. And I, receive and accept Park, Rec, and Forestry March Department reports. I need a motion to approve, or we need to pull any items to be discussed.
I'll move to approve.
I'll
the
move to
consent
approve.
agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept and act on the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried, okay.
So I just want Titletown, Vern's Cheese, and Lodge Kohler to know that your items have been approved and you can leave. There's no more to do with those.
Okay. Okay, so now we're at action items. 9A, consider, discuss, act on temporary Class B liquor license extension at Anduzzi Sports Club, 1992 Holmgren Way. I believe that's Joel.
Yep, I can take this one. I think Chief is out taking some photographs with the new officers and the lieutenant. So Anduzzi Sports Club at 1992 Holmgren Way is requesting an extension to their outdoor premise for both their Class B beer, Class B intoxicating liquor license for an area of the north parking lot indicated on the outline map that was included in your packet. This extension is temporary in nature and runs through the days preceding and of the days of the NFL draft. So 4/22/25 through 4/26/2025. This item was presented to the Public Works and Protection Committee meeting this past month, at which time the Public Safety Department had recommended denial of this particular request because of concerns for access and fire lane purposes around the north end of the building. However, after the Public Works and Protection meeting, public safety staff and administration had met with the ownership group and came to the understanding that there is not to be any temporary structures or encumbrances within that area. And so public safety is no longer recommending denial of this item. So the board can certainly take this item up individually without recommendation from Public Works and Protection Committee.
Joel, is this just a gathering place for people?
That's correct.
It's
Just
nothing,
an open
nothing,
area within the exterior of their premise that would allow for alcohol to be consumed.
all right, if an emergency vehicle had to get in there, they could get in there then. All right, I'll move to approve the extension of Ed Anna Jersey Sports Bar for the draft reasons.
I'll second.
One
Okay.
question, quick. Sorry.
Okay.
Joel, there will be no enclosure around that area then? It'll just be open, it'll just be an area where they can
Yeah.
stand and drink but the public safety will be able to get through and any emergency vehicles if needed?
Yep, that's correct. So there's some setback limitations anyway for structures, even from a tent standpoint. So tents or other temporary structures would be limited regardless of the premise. So that would be a separate issue, but they would not be permitted because of setback concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the temporary Class B liquor license extension for Anduzzi's. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. 9B, consider, discuss, act on Mona Rose Winery request for unlimited transfer full-service retail outlet at 753 Lombardi Avenue, April 24th through April 26th, 2025. Chris?
So Mona Rose Winery is requesting to set up 2 parking spots to sell their wine, and this is at, it's on a corner at 753 Lombardi Avenue, and there's gonna be other things there also, food trucks, tents and that. So it's It's like a little market, kind of. This AB 105 form is something that we haven't seen very often here, and the board either okays it or denies it, but the clerk's office does not issue it. So once you make your decision, then the owner takes this and sends it to the state, and then it's up to the state to decide if they're allowed to do that during the draft. I do have two questions, though, that need to be answered before I can give this back to the owner. Number one, will the municipality limit the scope of alcohol beverages offered for sale? And the second one is, will the municipality impose any requirements or restrictions for the full-service retail outlet? He is here, the owner is here, if you'd like to ask any questions.
Those questions you have to ask, Chris, those questions are asked the board?
Yes,
We have to, yes or no to them?
correct.
Okay. Well, I'd open the floor to let Craig talk about what he wants to do.
Second.
We all understand it.
Thank you. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm renting 2 spots from Bob Copeland's on.
Excuse me, just a minute, Craig. We have to vote to open the floor?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Come on up, Craig, and please list your name and address for the record. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine. Craig Fletcher, 1355 Lucy Lane, Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin, although the mailing address doesn't appear. So basically what I'm just looking at doing is, that lot's gonna be food trucks. So basically I'll be in the middle of food trucks, being able to, sell wine to people, not anything, no booze or anything like that, just wine. And then also, we are at a location where there's a lot of motels in that, so if someone wants, instead of driving on the busy streets, we'd like to be able to sell them a bottle to bring back to the motel, because there's all the motels right in that area. So that's basically what we're looking for the 3 days on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Okay.
I have a question for maybe our chief. If they purchase wine in this area, can they walk with open container to wherever they're going and consume it as they're walking down the way? Or is there a secured area that they have to stay in?
For Lambeau event games, that answer would be yes, they can walk down. I don't think we have said anything with the draft that this is considered the same, and Joel can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. However, we don't have the manpower to stop every single person. However, it only takes one time someone is disorderly or doing something they shouldn't, that is our reason to stop, because they shouldn't be with the alcoholic beverage in an area where they shouldn't be.
Mr. Fletcher, do you know if they're going to have any kind of enclosure around this area, that they're going to have food trucks and then the wine cell there, or is it just going to be like an open space?
I think it's an open space, but we're also right by where they're gonna be selling alcohol at other places. So I'm not sure if it really matters if we're fenced in if other places aren't. But I'm not sure, because I'm not the owner of the lot. I'm just
Yep.
renting spots from the lot.
So just to answer kind of Tom's point, so under municipal code, there is an exemption for consuming intoxicants in public places. Within our code, the exemption would be for areas within the Lambeau Field Entertainment District and parking lots or sidewalks during Packer game days or entertainment events approved by the village board. So this being a special event for the draft within the Lambeau Field Entertainment and Sports and Entertainment District, it would be permissible under our code to do that.
Okay, thank you.
This came in front of the Public Works. We had no problem with it, so I move to approve Craig's want here.
I'll second.
A second.
Okay, first we have a motion and a second,
close
but
the
first we
floor.
need, yep.
Let's close. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
All right,
Aye.
now I'll make the proposal to let Craig sell beer at 753 Lombardi Avenue.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the Mona Rosa Winery request for full-service retail outlet at 753 Lombardi Avenue. So we're not restricting anything,
Wine only, correct?
Wine only?
That's what we just discussed.
Yeah, that's what
Wine
that's all
only.
yeah.
right?
And that's what is, okay. Yep.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
9C, consider, discuss, act on recommended changes to co-sponsored program residency policies. Okay, Joel will be taking this.
Sure, and then Melody's gonna help fill in where needed, but, thank you, Madam President. So in your packet, there's, quite a detailed list of information related to co-sponsored recreational programs or services that are provided to members of our community, that aren't necessarily run through our Parks and Recreation Department. They're kind of run through a variety of different volunteer organizations, associations, and boards. So an example of that would be like the Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball Program, or commonly AYB, or the Swim Club, or girls softball, youth football, so on and so forth. These very specific sponsored programs, which are listed in your memo, receive a variety of different services and financial contributions from the village to support their operations. And again, each program has a different or a varying degree of financial support or in-kind services. The village has had a longstanding policy as it relates to co-sponsored programs and the individuals that are able to participate within those programs that may be considered non-residents to the village of Ashwaubenon. As of right now, the programs that are co-sponsored are limited to either resident participants or non-residents who happen to be open in the Ashwaubenon School District. A number of weeks ago, a few months ago, in fact, a few of these organizations had approached the village about potentially adjusting the policy to allow for non-residents and non-open enrolled participants into their programs. Each of the clubs had presented information to the park board that they used to then formulate their ultimate recommendation to the village board. And each organization has varying different needs for why they're looking to potentially offer opportunities for non-residents or non-open enrolled participants. Often is the case, it's really a demographic issue more than anything else. They need additional participants to fill a roster, to fill a relay team, to open up the organization or the club to other competitions and other venues. So what was ultimately decided at Park Board that is being recommended tonight is to have the board approve a change in the policy for co-sponsored programs that would add some additional components to the policy. Those are listed in your packet, and they basically are really three things. First, they would allow for all these co-sponsored groups to provide for non-resident, non-open enrolled participation within their clubs. It would be up to the individual co-sponsored groups if they wanted to provide it anyway. So not if you were a particular club and you did not want to open it up for non-residents, you wouldn't have to. But the cap would be limited to 15% of the previous full season's registration enrollment. So there would be a cap number. That number would be determined on July 1st each year. So the clubs, the organizations would submit to the Parks and Recreation Department their roster. The roster would be reviewed. We would determine what that total enrollment would be. And then as of July 1, that 15% would be established. For any non-resident, non-open enrolled participant, they would pay an additional $15 fee to the co-sponsored group, and that would basically try to offset the loss of direct financial contribution that the club would receive from the village. That $15 surcharge, if you will, would stay with the youth organization. It would not come back to the village. If the organization chooses to accept non-resident, non-open enrolled participants, the direct funding that is provided in many cases as a reimbursement to expenses to the organization would be withdrawn for that particular calendar year. So every year kind of resets itself. There may be a season where, just use as an example, and Donovan's here, so I'll pick on Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball. youth baseball says they want to allow for non-residents 1 year. They get a huge uptick in participation that year, and then they recognize maybe they don't need to offer the non-resident spaces within the club, and so the next year they say we're gonna pull back and not allow for that. And that's the purpose of each year allowing that opportunity to review for the club to determine whether or not they're going to permit the non-resident, non-open enrolled participation. What this does not change if a co-sponsored group decides to take non-resident enrollments, it would not change the in-kind contributions that are being provided presently from the village. As an example, the swim club has basically provided provisions for use of the Ashwaubenon community pool. So if it were a strictly outside organization, they would pay a large rental fee per hour for the pool. Because it is a co-sponsored group, the fee for use of the pool is minimal at best. And the same would be the case for things like baseball or softball, where field maintenance and utilities and things like that are covered indirectly through the village's maintenance program for our park system. Again, this has been reviewed. I think Park Board has taken this matter up at least 3 times over the past several months. There's been surveys done with each of the organizations, and Park Board recommended these additions because it gives the greatest degree of flexibility to the clubs. It allows an opportunity for non-residents to participate, but limits the impact that maybe the village would see as it relates to direct reimbursements for expenses for non-resident participation. So again, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and then Melody is here representing the department and maybe soccer, sort of, kind of.
I had a question, or a couple questions actually. What is the mission of youth sports? Because to me, it's a developmental program for your high school teams. And so I'm a little concerned about having non-resident kids come in. I know this is probably what happened in 2005. I wasn't here then, but if you have kids coming in, let's say softball, because I coached softball, then who's coming? Like, is it a pitcher from De Pere who's going to be the second string if they stay in De Pere, but they could be the first string pitcher here? But then we're not developing our pitcher or catcher or shortstop, or like the skill positions. It makes me nervous to have non-resident kids come in and we develop them then for De Pere, and then they beat us when they are high school kids because we gave them all those reps when they were 10, 12, 13. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if it's agreeable to the board, if you want to open the floor, because there are members from youth baseball, I think swim club is here, soccer is certainly represented, so I think they can certainly articulate that concern best. Each organization has, my understanding, has their own set of bylaws. They operate under their own kind of set of rules and guidelines. By and large, the co-sponsored program probably wouldn't exist today if there wasn't some degree of influence on these organizations to ensure that they're a community-minded organization, hence the compensation and the in-kind services is to your point, trustee services, to ensure that we provide a solid base of developmental programs for the kids in youth sports. So if the board is agreeable to that, I guess I would recommend that, because I don't know that I can answer that question specifically.
Before we open it real quick, Kelly, just to answer your question a little further, at Park Board, it was discussed a lot on that, exactly what you said. And that's why the 15% cap was put on it. So it's a limited amount of participants that can come in. So hopefully we don't have issues like that. But some of the organizations, their numbers are dropping because of people staying in their houses longer and the young families not moving into our community. So they're struggling to get enough people to participate in their programs. So you have to balance all of those, and each organization, like Joel said, is very different and has different needs. But it definitely was heavily discussed, and with the cap on it, we felt comfortable going that route and allowing non-residents in.
I'm conflicted.
Yeah, I would like to open the floor and let them speak, and then we can discuss further. Me having run one of these organizations and that, I have some thoughts that I will share, but I really want to open the floor and let those organizations speak. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The floor is open. If somebody would like to come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Renee Jaden Rice, 1303 Sunny Creek Drive with Ashwaubenon Swim Club.
Donovan Miller, 1415 Avondale Drive with Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball.
Okay. Anybody have questions for them?
Are all your programs lacking Ashwaubenon kids?
What is an Ashwaubenon kid to you, Gary? That's my question. I'll tell you that baseball mirrors open enrollment in the school right now. We're at about, our regular league is 28%, and our tournament team players are about 35% open enrolled students already. So they're mostly families that do not live in the village already. So that's the numbers I have, because we have that as a check on our registration. You know, where do you go to school? Are you a resident? Yes, no, no. Where? Tell us more. So I can tell you that 20% of our regular league are open enrolled students already, and then a little more with our tournament team of our 245 kids total. So
That many.
And I would say from swim, we also mirror that. We do have the area of, that is Village of Ashwaubenon goes to West De Pere. That does tend to come to our swim club as well. So we have some of those residents.
Because enrollment is not down, is it, in our school district? I mean, it's been pretty constant for probably 10 years at least, right?
I don't think our school enrollment is down, you know, about between 30 and 35% of the students in the school are open enrolled. So
I'm just wondering if there's a solution more directed toward recruiting the kids we have and getting more involvement from our residents instead of open it up to non-residents. On the other hand, I'm conflicted on this because on the other hand, I want kids to be able to play. And
So
I
the
want there to
question
be
that
enough
I
teams
have
to a
is,
league.
Okay, Jay.
the lack of participants, and Donovan, you in particular, and from the swim club perspective, if you just get a blanket 15%, is that really going to help you? Because I'm guessing it's different age groups or different skill groups or different, in the swim perspective, maybe different skill groups, and then you have different age groups. So I don't know that just giving 15% is going to solve your problem.
From the swim club perspective, we are losing participants, I would say, as swimmers get older. They want to train alongside high-quality competitors. And when you don't have anybody to push you hard when you are swimming, your swims go down. They want to be able to participate with others in relays, which is a major component of being on a swim team. And we don't have enough people to do relays in our older age groups and genders. So that is what we are seeking to, we're hoping to fill some of those gaps through the open enrollment. But that 15% would give us the ability to be an option for some swimmers. It's not something that we are not going to recruit. It would be only through word of mouth that we would have that opportunity to do so.
And for baseball, 15% would, from this year, if we were to apply this for next year, would come out to 37 kids. So I would really have to target age groups, not knowing. So I turned 6 kids away this year. I don't know exactly all of the age groups they fell into, but I do know one would have been our AAA, which was our big struggle this year until recently when we did some shuffling around of players. We only had 3 teams going into the season. We're barely 4. We're going to try it. And then I know I turned a T-ball family away that lived on literally the wrong side of the street. A few cousin requests that they were cousins, wanted to play with their cousins. Sorry, can't do it. And one who summer home here in Green Bay or something, apparently, that they would have came late May, early June and played, a little bit of time here. but they were not residents of Ashwaubenon. Those are the 6 that I'm aware of. On the financial side, baseball, softball receive a lot more financial aid, financial help from the village, which is crucial to us keeping going. We just bought all the new batting cages that, anybody can use, and we help maintain things at the Diamonds and the concession stand, and like, we're as good of partners as we can be, right? Like, the bills come and we pay them, keep our facilities up. So, we like to keep that going, but if we took the financial hit for 37 kids at $15 back a person, we're giving up close to $6,000 and getting back $555. It just really wouldn't make sense for our program. And then, to Jay's point, what if they all are in our AA where we have 70 kids, which is too many, not enough for 7 teams, too many for 6, do we want 7 teams? So it would really have to be strategic where we place those.
A lot of the questions.
Yeah, I see it really working for a swim club. I really see it working for a swim club. But when we get to a team perspective, those different age groups, I see it being a real challenge. And I have some thoughts as to where we should go, but we can continue on. I know, Chris, you got a question.
Yeah, the questions presented here, a lot of them, most of them were addressed at the park board, and they're good questions. Kelly, you mentioned what's the mission of the I don't necessarily think it's to feed our high school program. Maybe that's part of it, but it's to serve our youth. I think our younger kids in the Ashwaubenon community. And I think these programs are coming to us. Their hardship is that their numbers are dwindling at a rate that these programs could die off. And we wouldn't be serving our youth in this village if we let that happen. When we first started having this conversation, my first thought was no, this ain't gonna happen. And then as I listened to these programs, and they did a great job of presenting it, and they went out, we asked them the efforts they made to recruit locally, and they made the efforts. They went through the processes. And then it became clear that it's not a money issue to these programs. We help fund them when they are co-sponsored. It's a numbers issue. They're worried that they're gonna die off, and to me, we can't let that happen. Times have changed. The family unit is smaller now. Who knows, 10, 15, hopefully 10, 15 years from now, we revisit this, or 5 years from now, and we go, okay, enough, we don't need that anymore. But I think right now, we're at that crossroads where they need options to be able to fill their rosters.
I'd have to agree. I mean, I had some discussions with people throughout the public this past week about this, and everybody seems to support it. My daughter plays softball. The numbers for the girls on that has dwindled, by what I'm told by my wife, who attended Ashwaubenon, in half in the past however many years that's been since she graduated. So if this helps fill some of them spots and helps you guys out, I'm for it.
For baseball, I see it, and I don't want to steal from other programs either, but I do have these few, nuances where I just want to play. The 2 nephews, they want to play together. How can that happen? Or you got stepchildren, one lives here, one lives there, type of thing, right? And however it works out, one doesn't live in Ashwaubenon, the other one does, type of thing. And swim club originally started talking about this, and for me, we'll figure out how to play baseball. Our AAA level, I think Jay probably had 8 teams at this age group, and we were barely making 4 this year. So what did we do this year? We're not playing 100% down Ashwaubenon at that age group this year. We're going to travel to Little Chute and Freedom to play baseball, because that's what we have to do. We have to adapt to what's in front of us, and we'll continue to adapt. But I saw a swim club and wrestling, like individual sports especially, like it's hard. And if you can't, even wrestling's one thing. Okay, it's an individual sport, but you can't have a 60-pound kid practicing against a 180-pound heavyweight. If you don't have the numbers, you're not going to have the team. Swim, if they don't have that 4th person to swim the relay, it's really hard to swim at 3. That person's gonna be really tired at the end. But baseball's, no, as noted, and I think it was our the census from this year shows, like, if you bracket off the age of current youth, and that's up to 14, by a year, like, there are not many kids left in this village. It's once these people are out of high school, you're gonna see the numbers really dwindle. We're gonna really be relying on open enrollment to keep the school system going. I'm pretty certain of that.
What are you finding with the kids? Are we finding that there's not enough kids or not enough interest in the sports?
I would say that from the swim club perspective, we always see an increase right after an Olympic year. So our numbers are looking pretty good right now, especially in the younger swimmer ranges. So we have 75, we've gone between like 75 to 8, or from 60 to 80 swimmers for the last 5 to 6 seasons. So I think that the interest is there, and I think swim is a unique situation in that you can be a member of the swim team and play baseball at the same time. It's not a either or situation. You can come to as many practices as you want, and come to as many meets as you want. There's not a team relying on you the way that if you don't show up to a baseball game, the team is out because of that. So we are a very unique sport in that regard. So that's the sort of kids that we're seeing and the interest that we're seeing in it. I can't speak for all of the other sports though.
I know one of the things with baseball and softball is one barrier is expense. It's an expensive sport for a parent to try, and we're starting to work on ways to hopefully knock that down as well. We used to have helmets for everybody, and then just kind of got out of that with lice and all sorts of different things. Just it didn't make sense to sport helmets, but it's something that we're not going to shy away from potentially doing in the future, is having a loan closet or different items that might put a family out of playing baseball. I don't want to pick on soccer, but soccer's stealing kids primarily because parents-wise, I think there's a little more, we ask you to work the concession stand, we ask you to help out, and they don't have the concession stand. I think there's kind of that draw where the parents can just watch their kid run around and get exercise. I do have a lot of families that play both, and I get a lot of emails, hey, could you move the night? I could, but I have this other thing called arm health that I need to worry about for our older kids that play out, so there's a lot of dynamics to that as well. Numbers wise, yeah, we have 245 kids total, 118 of those play on tournament team. So I know I have 118 kids that are in it no matter what, whether the cost goes up or not. I would say of those families, the large majority of them don't even want to play league baseball. But as the president of Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball, I have to remind everybody that we are league first, tournament second. The tournament team exists because we have an Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball League. And if you want to play for Ashwaubenon, you have to play our league baseball. So primary focus for us, keep league baseball around. I'm confident that if the tournament teams wanted, and I lost the whole age group this year to outside organizations, and that's another problem. We got the creep on baseball programs popping up all over. So.
What does it cost to have a child in baseball? You're talking expense for the family. What's an average cost for a child?
After they buy the equipment, I just left. I just left with a hefty credit card bill from Dick's Sporting Goods the other day, but not everybody has to buy the stuff that I just bought my son. You could get, if you want to play a T-ball and you wanted to look like everybody else, a T-ball kid could probably buy a $40 pair of cleats, a $30 bat, a $30 glove, a $30 helmet. All of a sudden it adds up though. It's $200 to go spin around in circles hitting.
It ain't just a bat and a ball anymore.
Gary,
Right.
I just bought my daughter a new softball bat. It was $550 and the gloves were $140 to go with it, plus brand new steel cleats, plus everything else. It's expensive, and those composite bats are 2 years and they're junk, so.
All the kids need a grandpa. That's it from my family.
Yes. I do wonder if opening this up will actually help draw families to Ashwaubenon. Maybe like you said, a cousin wants to play with their cousin and we allow it, they come here, they really realize that they like Ashwaubenon, and it's another reason that somebody wants to look at moving in here. I look at it as it's not gonna push people away, but it definitely potentially will draw people to our community. And we wanna see that population of kids in all these sports and stuff increase and not keep decreasing.
So,
You know, I'd like to, I appreciate the organizations sharing their views. I don't know if they have any other views or if anybody else has any questions, but I think we should probably close the floor then and just discuss this amongst ourselves. Everybody's got great points. I mean,
Was there anybody?
I've been involved in this for a long time.
Was there anybody else here that wanted to speak before we close it?
okay, I just want to make a comment before we close the floor. So it was between 18 and 20 years ago when the swim team came before the board and asked the park board if they could have out of residence people. And they were denied that. My daughter was a swimmer from when she was 11 until she graduated from high school. I understand the whole baseball thing because my grandson is on a baseball team that only has 9 kids on it.
It's tough.
It's tough if one of them goes on vacation. So I get all those things. And I guess when this first got brought up, I probably was, no, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't open it up. But as they stated, if the program will not continue to exist, we're cutting off our residents' kids, and I don't want to do that either. You know, if they only have, 3 kids for a relay, they're not going to want to stay with this Ashwaubenon Swim Club. They can go to Green Bay Swim Club. They can go to the Y, so you're going to lose them to that. So I guess I have I agree, Kelly, I have very mixed emotions on this, but anyway.
I'd just like to say from baseball, as the decision stands with the 15% losing the funding, we probably wouldn't pursue it next year. I can't say that 100%, but as I'm sitting right now, I don't think we would pursue that just because of the cost also of baseball. Like, we paid, I think, close to $4,000 of overages last year because of all the rain, diamond dry and whatnot that we dumped down. Now we just bought a new skid of both. So it's an expensive sport. When it rains, it literally rains, right? Like, you can't. And if it rains on a weekend when we have a tournament, it's all resources available because we need to play baseball. We don't have that roof, right? So as the motion stands, I support it. I'm fine. I'm glad that it's going in the direction. I sure hope it works for the individual clubs and the clubs that can find it. I don't think, as it would stand, baseball would be willing to say yes right now. And I don't want to advertise and look. I don't want 37 outside kids necessarily, but I just want the option when it's there, so I don't have to say no to a few, in hopes that this organically gets back up. So I just wanted to say that before.
Okay.
And my final thought from swim would be that we have lost swimmers. We've lost 3 just in the last year who have gone to Green Bay Swim Club or Fox Valley Swim Club, because that's where the competition is, where they can participate in those relays or other things. And we have historically turned away about 10 to 12 families every year that come for swim lessons to the Ashwaubenon pool, and then they want to continue with swim club because they see us there at the same time and want to participate, and we have to turn them away after they do the new swimmer week and they try it out. They're all excited about swim, and then we see on their form that they live on the wrong side of the street in that area that is west of Pierce School District in Ashwaubenon Village of that is just across the street from the Village of Ashwaubenon section. So that is one of the reasons why we are here. We are so appreciative of the in-kind support and all of the support as a co-sponsored organization. We don't want to make it seem like we are not appreciative of that, because we wouldn't exist without that either. But we appreciate you guys thinking about this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And any other questions for them, or we can move to close the floor?
Motion to close the floor.
Second?
Motion and a second to close the floor. All in favor, say aye.
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 I
Opposed. Thank you for your comments, Donovan and Renee. Okay. What's the discussion, Jay?
Well, I'm probably a little bit unique having run an organization, sat in Donovan's spot, did that. Totally get it. This has been coming for quite a long time. I mean, there's a lot of pressure in baseball. I do honestly believe there is a difference between individual sports and team sports. The reason being is in a team sport, and we can make the comment, oh yeah, you know, we want to get more kids on those teams and that. But what happened back in 2005 is going to happen again. It's going to put people like Donovan in a very tough position, because all of a sudden, little Johnny, who's an Ashwaubenon resident, isn't going to get the player coming in as non-resident. And I believe that that's the distinction. I believe that's absolutely, we have to do this for the swim club. We have to do this for the wrestling. We have to do it for those individual sports, because to Chris Zerbel's point, we have to offer those. We can't stop this. We need those sports. That is so important. But I think from a team perspective, there's other options. And I know that AGSA is doing this. I know AYB and Donovan is doing this. You're going to have to expand out to other communities. And that way you can still get all the Ashwaubenon kids to play, but you get to still play against competition from areas, from Freedom, from Little Chute. ESA they basically have their different leagues all over the area. I mean, to open it up, I'm just afraid that we are going to start cutting out Ashwaubenon kids from playing. To Kelly's initial point, that isn't going to help us down the road a little bit. And I do agree that the youth sports are not necessarily feeder. They are to enhance our youth in Ashwaubenon, but at the same time, you know, we will be, you know, we're going to be stepping on the toes and maybe pushing some kids out of a sport because we bring in an open enrolled kid, or not an open enrolled, but a non-resident kid. We're going to bring that in. All of a sudden that kid's going to go, well, I can't play anymore, so now I'm going to get out of the sport. So it can work against us as well, doing that. That's why I would be more in favor of let these individual sports go forward. Let's let swim club do this. Let's let wrestling do this. But I'd like to see, since AYB was the only sport from a team perspective that said that they would want to do this, I'd like to see them to continue, which I know Donovan already is doing, to try to work with area communities and try to build leagues to get more, because guess what? Those communities also have the same problems, or their age groups, when they get older, the kids are dropping out. So they have the same problem. So now if we pull kids from them and get them to come over by us, that community might not have enough kids. So I think we're better off trying to build leagues and work with other communities on this than just saying we're just going to automatically just allow non-residents to come in. That's my feeling on it. And again, that's with a lot of being a varsity coach, who I want all those Ashwaubenon kids playing that are going to come into Ashwaubenon High School, as well as having run an organization and answering all those questions that Donovan had about cousins being able to play, things like that. Yeah, I get it, but it's not like those kids can't play. They do have a place that they can go play. They just maybe can't play with their cousins.
Jay, I'll say, just taking your comments now, I'm going to push back a little bit on other communities having the same issues. I think the difference right now as we stand is Ashwaubenon is locked. We're not going to expand our student population really anymore, where you get communities like Freedom and Wrightstown and the outlying areas. They got room for expansion, and their programs have more of an ability to grow compared to what we have going on here. At the park board meeting at the outset, we kind of started. It was asked, do we want to handle this on a case by case basis, or do we want to take it as a whole? And we decided let's tackle this as a whole, and inside of that, each individual program can decide what they wanted to do. And Donovan brought up the perfect example tonight, where he's not even decided they're going to go that route. He just wants it in his back pocket in case he has to.
Yeah, my fear is then Donovan's going to have to answer that parent that says, you know what, my Johnny's not going to play because you brought in this star, and same thing in AGSA. Kelly brought up that one. You brought in this star pitcher, so now my daughter's not going to play, so I'm going to drop out. So now we lose a kid.
I don't,
It's a tough question, Chris.
yeah,
I get it's a tough question. I'm not saying I got a perfect answer, but I really like the idea that we're going to revisit this the 1st of July every year. And I think we should leave that in there and allow every organization that 1st of July. But to start with, I'd really like to see it just be the individual groups do that. I also have some, okay, it was decided 15%. Like in a swim club perspective in that, I think that percentage can be higher personally, but that's just my thoughts.
yeah, we could have debated that 15% all night long, but we kind of,
Exactly.
it looked like
Yep.
all the clubs
Get it.
were comfortable with that. To get back to the, not to nitpick, but to get back to the point of, a star pitcher, for your example, coming into our community, those potential really good athletes, I don't think are looking to skip to another community. They're going to the private organizations. I don't think in a case like that, we have anything to worry about there. And like I said before, hopefully we get back to, in 5 years or 10 years, or maybe even shorter, that we'd look at this and go, we don't need to do this anymore. But for right now, we got to let these people survive.
Yeah, I think the big thing
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
that Chris hit on the head that came up at Park Board is, we have 7 co-sponsor organizations that do a great service for the village of Ashwaubenon. We could not have the programs we have without them. And treating them all the same, I think, was one of the things that came out at Park Board, and allowing them to make that decision. So they're the ones that make the decision whether they want to take non-residents or not. That's totally up to them. And maybe one year they don't want to, and then the next year they see a huge drop, and then they need to go that route just to keep their programs viable. So it allowed for some flexibility for the organizations to pick and choose whether they wanted to do it. And I think, Park Board kicked a lot around, and I think there's a good decision made here, and organizations can take it or leave it. And the village does not have a lot of administrative work to try to control this and make sure things are rolling the way we want it to roll. And try it, and maybe, like Chris said, maybe 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, when all those new homes come in on the south end of the village, we're gonna hopefully have a whole bunch of new kids come into our community. And then we say, we're not allowing non-residents anymore because we have so many kids, we can't do that anymore. And we can change that. So I think this is just a way to let them make a choice and be able to see how it works.
I would have to agree with that. I think each program is going to have to determine, and it's going to be pressure on the coaches. The coaches have to make that determination, and if a coach decides to get this star pitcher or star backstroker that is coming, and you're going to lose 2 other kids because of that, well, they have to think about that, and I guess we have to have enough reliance on the coaches that are coaching.
We're talking about Ashwaubenon kids versus outsiders coming in. If you'd go with this program, could you have the Ashwaubenon kids have priority to play versus the outsiders? I don't know if that's a good question or not. but-
That's controlling a coaching.
No.
Oh, don't work?
No.
Okay, all right.
No.
I respect
No, couldn't do that. I
that.
would never want to hamstring coaches and programs to be able to do that. That definitely would be
All
something.
right, I didn't say
wouldn't
that.
wanna
I
do.
didn't ask a question.
That's fair.
But what we have to remember here too is that this is for 1 year. This can get revisited. So,
Agreed.
if we determine that, it's not working, park department determines that, we can revisit it next year, so.
Well, and the thing to remember, these are recreation programs. These are, like Donovan said, these are to get kids out and try a sport and just have fun with it. And I'm sure there's competition, and I'm sure there's ins and outs and all kinds of things going on. But ultimately, that's what we're here for, is to get these kids involved. And if a non-resident kid can make it more viable for the swim club to have a relay, they have that experience, great. And we're not giving away anything, we're just allowing them to be more efficient and maybe have a better program.
Yeah, but I am going to make the point, Tracy, that's the difference between sport and a team sport.
Yeah.
Because the individual sport, yep, you can do that. Because you got multiple relays, you have multiple heats, you have multiple things where they're all going to get their chances. But now when you go into a team sport, now you have the problem where, well, we bring in a non-resident, we only got 9 spots in the field, somebody's going to be sitting out. I'm just bringing up that point. I'm just saying that in 2005, when this got brought up and we put in that initial rule, I know because I was right on the outside of all that, it was because of exactly up and complained and said, you know what, we're paying taxpayer money and our kids can't play because you've been bringing from Green Bay or wherever it was. I don't remember the situations. And that's why this came up. That I'm just saying that I hate to put Donovan and those people in that position, having been in that position to have to answer those questions. I'd like to be backing them up. I feel like we're kind of, okay, if they say yes, they're going to do it. We're looking at the monetarily part of it. That's fine. But now what happens when those parents start complaining because their kids aren't playing because the non-resident kids are playing? I just got to throw that out there. I just know that's going to happen.
I'm gonna try to interject a little bit here just to help move the discussion along. It sounds like for the most part that although there's been some debate and discussion about the amount of non-resident participants, the cap at 15%, the process of an annual review every July 1 reviewing it, it sounds like those matters are agreeable based on the discussion that I've heard. The framework for maybe debate tonight is on whether a team sport like Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball, Girls Softball Association, football, or soccer, because they're a team sport, whether or not they should be allowed to provide space for non-resident, non-open enrolled. It sounds like, as of right now, that most are agreeable to the idea that individual sports, if you will, swim club, wrestling, things of that nature, those are the only two really truly kind of individual sports that's agreeable because you're not necessarily taking a proverbial roster spot of active play from a resident participant to a non-resident participant. So if that's the agreement or the area of emphasis or discussion, then maybe I would suggest and be bold enough to suggest that a board member could make a motion to adopt the recommendation from Park Board or make a motion to adopt the recommendation from Park Board, however, limit that non-resident, non-open enrolled participation only be available to groups like swim club and wrestling.
Joel, I appreciate that recommendation, but me personally, and this is just me, I would prefer to leave that option open to an organization like AYB as well.
I would agree.
I would make a motion that we approve the recommendation from the park board with a 15% cap on it for non-residents and offer to all all organizations. They have to let us know by July 1st, and if they decide to go with non-residents, they lose their direct cash contribution that they get from the Village of Ashwaubenon.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. You all heard what Tracy said. Does everybody understand it?
Yeah, my only comment would be as to, I think we're going to put some of those organizations against. I'm just trying to point out some of the problems that are going to why the initial co-sponsored organization thing was out there. I'm not against it. I'm going to say, okay, let's see how it goes. I would like to add, though, that this review on July 1st is actually where each organization comes back and we did for this one actually comes back and not only, you know, do I want to do this? Do I not? No, they come back and they state what's been positive, what's not, you know, are they going to be needing this going forward? I just don't want it to be a rubber stamp come July 1st.
That's what I was gonna say too. I'm willing to try it for a year. I want the programs to be able to operate. I'm thinking it probably will need some fine tuning just because I don't see how the math works. Like Donovan said, for 37, he might only get 6 non-residents who wanna come and then he's only got, what is that? $90? And he's giving up 4,000, he's not gonna do it. So maybe we need to have what is proposed now be for the individual sports and some other formula for the baseball and softball people if they really wanna go this way, because they're not gonna give up their $4,000, $500,000
Right.
funds from us just to have 37 or 40 people.
Well, I think that a lot of,
And additionally, those kids have to be in the right age group when you're talking to team sports.
right.
Because if Donovan gets, if he gets 37, you know, T-ballers and single A'ers, it's not helping him where he needs help. He needs help in the 11 and 12-year-old group.
Well, and that's one thing we asked Donovan about, you know, maybe he needs AAA kids. And I asked him with the registration software if they could do that, and he said, absolutely. And I'm sure swim club they need older kids, let's say, for some relays. They can do that as well. So they can control that, so they don't get, you know, 35 T-ballers, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's not what we needed. We needed these guys. So if they chose to go there, they could control it with their registrations.
And I think that the July 1 review of each individual program, we can ask the correct question.
Right.
To find out the answer that, did it work good? What was negative? What was positive? So to try this for 1 year, I would have to say that I'm okay with it. But anyway, we have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand it?
And I'll just add, if it's agreeable to the individuals that made the motion and the second, there is a kind of a comment about providing a review on July 1st. So if you want to amend your motion to include kind of a formal presentation, if you will, to the park board after July 1 of next year, and then that could be used in the basis for your review for the following year. So it's not just submit us your numbers by July 1st, but in July at that park board meeting, there'll be a review by the park board of those numbers.
Okay, is that,
Sure.
okay, that is the second amendment?
fair.
Okay, so you all understand the motion with the amendment in that motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 I
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, 9D, consider, discuss, act on a presentation and update on the municipal facilities condition assessment and space utilization. This is, okay, informational purposes only, it says. So we don't consider, discuss, act.
Yep, our team from, our architectural team from Wold and Kay are gonna come up and provide a presentation. This is an update, if you recall, I believe it was back in November or December, they were here. Gave an update on the overall facility condition assessment component of our study. Now they are midway through, or a substantial portion of the way through their facility utilization component. So I'm going to take a moment to pull up the PowerPoint for them, and then they're going to walk through their presentation here and answer any questions that you may have. So I'll pass it over to Melissa.
Hi, Madam President, trustees. Thank you for having us again to provide an update to you on kind of the process that we've been going through with our core planning group, which is a lot of the members that you see at the staff seats over there. So I'm Melissa Stein with Wold Architects and Engineers, and I'm here with
Jordan Guth with Cross Anderson.
So we have been a partnered team. And if you remember, we did provide an update in December. At that time, we kind of wanted to give you the need, if you will. So all of the data that we had gathered in terms of the facilities, so the condition of the facilities, the needs that we heard from all the different departments, and kind of what that need is, if you will. So this is kind of a correlation of all of those pieces together and kind of those next steps. So what we did is took all of those parts and pieces, created options, we evaluated them with our team, and here today is kind of we're presenting that update with you all. Go to the next one, Joel. If you guys remember our guiding principles, we start with these every year. These are kind of our themes that we started with from the project to, it's kind of what we base some of our criteria on as we start evaluating the different options. So the first one is the solution should accommodate the next 20 years for the long-term need of the village. Solution needs to be adequate for future changes in operation and demographic. Each facility should maximize staff flow, operational efficiencies, and also provide comfortable work environments that promote staff pride and wellness. Facilities should provide safe delivery of service, public service by village staff, while also providing an open and publicly welcoming environment. The plan should be common sense in terms of sustainability approaches that we would take and initiatives. And the recommendation should reflect today's immediate needs, but also support our future growth without kind of starting over in terms of additions or renovations as we think of that long-term growth for the village. And then the investment should reflect the community's values and be fiscally responsible. Next one, thank you. So this is just an overview of the process that we went through. If you guys remember, step 3 was where we were at the last time we met with you. Now we've been able to go through some options. We've evaluated those options, and we would love to present those to you today, and that's what this update is. Just a quick overview of all of the data that we had collected the last time. So kind of an update, if you will. The public works expansion, public safety, and then village hall, these were, as we talked through a core planning group, the priorities that we set forward in terms of maybe the projects that we wanted to, what we would say like the first one that we want to try to tackle, and then the second, and then the third. So the sequence of kind of our phasing of projects and priority. For the public works expansion, we wanted to provide operational flow and efficiencies for the staff and the equipment. We wanted to preserve assets, which means providing the adequate storage. So those were kind of their main 2 space needs that we found out. Public safety, meet the best practices to support health, wellness, safety, security for the fire, EMS, and law enforcement, and then provide better service for the community, which would be the appropriate station location within your village. And then village hall, create a more customer service or customer-centric and cohesive working environment for your staff and your community. We are gonna first start looking at that public works since that was one of our main priority project. The column in the middle is the existing, so as we took a takeoff of what you owe to, or what the facility is today for the office and the warm vehicle storage, it is 48,735. Our proposed, as we went through our space needs, was just shy of 96,000, or sorry, just over 96,000 gross square foot. So that means exterior building combined. And then for cold storage, we are looking at growing from the 15,000 today. So that is the maintenance shed that Parks and Recs uses, along with the cold storage that Public Works mainly uses. The thought is that we can combine that into a single storage for efficiencies, and that's just over 43,000 square feet. We looked at a couple different options as we were evaluating. We looked at a do nothing. What does that mean in terms of the conditions and the efficiencies of the building with the cost that's associated with that? We then looked at additions and renovations, and then we looked at what would a new construction look like for the Public Works building, cold storage, salt shed, fuel island tank would have to go in that too. So we looked at all the different options. We looked at what those costs could be. Just to note, the cost here, when we evaluated them, just to make things apples to apples, everything is in Q1 of 25. As we know, not everything's going to happen Q1 of 25. We don't know the timing of all the projects. So we do know that, if you're going to plan to do something in 27, there is, 5 to 8% inflation that would need to be included to that cost. once we have maybe a better timing of when the projects might hit in terms of the years, we can then add that inflation there and get you more appropriate costs.
Melissa, I'll just add to that. So that do nothing column, you'd say, well, why does it cost $17 million to do nothing?
Yeah.
That means don't do anything as far as an expansion or a major renovation. That is basically replacing existing systems that are in place. So new roof, new HVAC systems, all that. So knowing that those are getting to a point in the next 10 or 20 years where it'll reach its end of useful life, it will need to be replaced to make the facility as it currently stands continuously usable for our purpose. So it's still do something. Yep. I just wanted to make sure that you're like, well, why does it cost so much to do nothing?
Nothing.
Do nothing meaning maintain existing,
Yep.
no major renovation or addition.
Yep. Thank you, Joe. Yep. So we use those to create a understanding of the best solution. We want to make sure that all the knowledge is being presented to our core planning group, and we really settled on the addition renovation for Public Works. And as you can see here, this is a site plan of Public Works for those of you who haven't stepped back there maybe in a while. On the far left-hand side, that is the existing Village Hall Public Safety kind of grayed out. That is the facility that we're in today. The dashed box all the way around everything is your property line, so that is the property that everything sits on. Everything that's in gray is the existing buildings. The items that are dashed are existing spaces, so the soccer field that's currently there, the community gardens that's currently there, the yard waste that's currently there. And as you can see, the maroon buildings and the light shaded pink are kind of the new proposed options. So as you look at the gray box kind of in the middle, that's your existing Public Works building. The plan is to add on for that existing new office and warm storage. As you can see with the size of that, that would kind of replace where the fuel island is today, along with where the existing cold storage is today as well. So the thought is, as the fuel island is maybe not, as we expand and look at the campus flow, we want to make sure that the fuel island is in a spot that all of the vehicles, not just Public Works, can use and that it's readily available. So relocating it into the space between the Village Hall and the Public Works actually provides a space where the fire trucks can use it, where, you know, Public Works can use it, and really any of the vehicles that are going to utilize that fuel island can do that without creating constraints on the flow for vehicles throughout that space. We also then, as you can see to the maroon boxes just to the right of that, is where our new cold storage is. There is an understanding that the existing cold storage is still in relative good condition and that there might be some thought of reusing that. So the gray box underneath the maroon is kind of that existing cold storage showing that located there. Really what we are trying to do here is really set up a separation between public functions, which would be the community soccer fields, the community garden, and kind of that transfer waste yard site to the Public Works facilities and space that they utilize. Sorry, Joel. Can you go back one? Sorry. So then everything to the maroon is kind of a new relocated parking lot with those community functions and assets over to the side near the pond that is there. Now you can go. Thank you, Joel. As we said, this is an addition renovation, so kind of the dashed line in the middle of the green is the existing building, so that is where we would plan to have those two buildings come together. And as you can see, we've laid out all of the different vehicles and sizes to make sure that everything can fit and that we have the right turning radiuses throughout. One other thing to note is near the top of the plan where it says training room, locker room, and the office space over in that corner. Thank you, Joel. We are planning to expand all of those spaces today as they are at capacity, not really meeting as we think through health and wellness for our Public Works individuals. When we think of just an office environment of somebody having to go and work in there, they're kind of within the garage space. So we wanted to make sure we were providing proper staff environment for the individuals working in this space as well. And then as we look at that estimate for that, we kind of took it piece by piece, if you will. So as we're renovating the existing public works for those staff environment and those staff spaces that we talked about, that's the square footage that we would be proposing. And then with our partnership with Kraus Anderson, they are a construction management firm, we used numbers, as I said, from Q1 of 25 of what we would, if we estimated something today, that is the number that we would be estimating based off of the plans that you had here. So we estimated the renovation, we also looked at a new salt shed and then the relocation of the fuel island along with the building as well. The total construction cost is 17 million. We do put a project cost factor in there, so what that does is has some contingencies built into it. It doesn't have that inflation that I talked about, but it has contingencies. It does have what we would call soft costs, so any of the testings, any of the fees that would be associated with that, along with maybe any equipment needs or any other ancillary things that they would need, and that's what we get to that project cost. So again, once we actually figure out what those project might consist of, we can always reduce that, but that 32% gives us some conservative numbers to make sure that day one, we're not already setting ourselves up for failure with a budget that doesn't meet the need. Anything on Public Works before we move on to any of the other projects?
It looks like the costs do not include the yard waste transfer site, community garden, and soccer field. How is that intended to be funded when that's all relocated?
Yes, you are correct. The cost does not include those. As we were doing the building and kind of figuring out the sequence of events, we weren't sure exactly where maybe some of the funding sources would be. If that is something that is a request or feedback we get from the board, we're more than happy to kind of look at that and figure out how we want to incorporate those costs into it, for sure.
It's definitely, obviously we want to get feedback from the board too, before we go knee deep into that end of things and what detail we want for a yard waste transfer site, if that's the case. As you probably likely saw on this diagram here, I hit the button one too many times. What we're looking at is the yard waste site more or less moving to this area, which is that parking lot. If you recall, we purchased this parcel from Fox Cities Community Credit Union in the recent past, and so we have full control of this parcel. What we could do is move that yard waste site location to this parking lot, so it'd be relatively minimal from an expense standpoint to do that. Where we run into some challenges is just prepping this area for community gardens, the soccer field, and then what would likely be some new public parking to support those two recreational facilities. So we would need to put those numbers to paper.
And one might ask why we are relocating a parking lot when one's there already. As we did some investigation on that site, just next to the yard waste that Joel had mentioned, there is kind of a delineated wetland in that space, and so we don't want to touch that at this point in time, because that will add more cost and potentially not allow us to do what we are proposing to do. As we move on to Village Hall and Public Safety, as you can see, we did the same kind of takeoff of space needs and analysis. So the existing today is everything combined in the building that we are currently sitting in, and then proposed is what that need looks like and what that future growth might look like. Again, similar with Public Works, we did look at the do nothing, and again, that is the deferred maintenance. So it's not do nothing in terms of nothing at all. It's in terms of making sure that the building, we take care of those deferred maintenance issues. So the heating, cooling, mechanical systems, electrical systems, looking at those get us to that kind of 16 million, if you will. We also looked at different options for additions and renovations, along with kind of that new construction of a total Village Hall public safety. Again, as we want to make sure we're looking at the full spectrum of what those costs would look like. We really ended up on, if you want to go to the next page, addition renovation for the Village Hall. So what you're seeing right here is kind of a 2-story option, and we looked at a bunch of different options. We looked at a 1-story, we looked at the 2-story, we looked at, where things could be configured. Jill, if you go to the next sorry, for public safety. As we start with Village Hall, the space itself works really well, but as we said, one of the major needs is being more customer-centric and creating more of a cohesive environment for staff. The reconfiguration that you're kind of seeing on this plan here really does that. It provides a single counter for the community to come in to interact then with Village Hall. It creates a better safety experience for your staff there because it provides multiple ways out of departments, and just gives some more, collaboration in terms of, as you can see, all the departments are together. As we look at the public safety option, which again is on this plan, the north side, we really wanted to look at the growth piece here. So as you can see, there's a dashed line kind of in the middle. That's that two-story option that I was looking at. But the main intent of this is to kind of locate all the office spaces and really make sure that our facility is really honing in on that cohesion on the public safety model that you have here. You have a very unique model, and your building today is not built that way. It's very separated between fire and law enforcement departments. And so what we were trying to do is create more of that collaboration for all of those entities together, because they do work very cohesive as a department, that the facility represented that. And then this would be the second story. As we looked at our second story and we think through the service model of dorm rooms, really that's where we want that quiet space to be. So whereas maybe all the office work and the noisy spaces might work on the lower level, that upper level is really just more of quiet space. Again, as we looked at that two-story option, we looked at the renovation of the Village Hall. We looked at, what the renovation for public safety is. As you can see, from a renovation perspective, those costs are not the same, but once you start building new construction or additions for public safety, the cost is a little higher than office spaces. So that's really what that two-story is. Along with it being two-story, it's also public safety, so it has a little bit of a higher price point. And then the addition to the police garage as well, again, which is at a different cost. So all of those together is about $19 million project cost, which again includes that 32% in terms of a cost multiplier for fixtures, contingencies, furniture, equipment, technology, testing fees, that sort of thing. And then we go on to Fire Station 2. As you all know, or as we talked about the last time, the Fire Station 2, the existing one, does have that child care area up on the upper level. So in the existing, that is 2,200 square feet. As we would go proposed, we are proposing that to not be included within the fire station. So as we think through the fire station itself, it's roughly around 11,000 square feet for a new station. Similar to the other two facilities, we looked at that do nothing option. So again, it's just the deferred maintenance of that building itself, so staying there. We also looked at what could a renovation addition look like on that site, along with what a new station might look like. Throughout our conversations, we decided a new station was the right direction in terms for the Fire Station 2. Part of that is location. The other part is, as you looked at additions, it gets really cramped in terms of responding or having vehicles turn in and out, which could cause some safety issues, especially with that child care facility on that site as well. So as we look at what that new Fire Station 2 could look like, again, it's roughly that 11,000 square feet. Construction cost would be $5.4 million. With that project cost multiplier, it gets to be about $7 million. So this process is a very cyclical process. It's not a linear one, even though it might seem like it is. We got to this point and we said, okay, these are kind of the 4 priorities that we are setting out. This is what we are proposing for the different projects. And as we took a look at it, and actually the chief said, is this the right spot? Is this the right sequence of what we want to be doing? And the last time we met, and we're like, you know what? Let's think about this. And so, Joel, go to the next one. We looked at a different sequencing approach. So priority one would still stay public works. When we think through the priorities 2 through 4, which is the public safety station, which we're calling kind of station 1, which is this one here, the village hall, and then station 2, we kind of created a phasing diagram, if you will, to help kind of think through what that might look like. But fire station 2 would stay existing. You know, the village hall, public safety 1 or station 1 would stay existing, and at that same time we would start building a new public safety facility. The thought is, right now we cover Ashwaubenon, but we know station 2 doesn't cover super well. And so the thought is, why don't we put our stations in locations that are actually going to help us serve our community better? And so one of the, again, as we were brainstorming and again looking at all of our options, thinking through putting a new public safety facility, so that year 1 we would start designing and constructing that new public safety facility. In year 2, we would move the public safety facility that's currently with Village Hall, we would move that into that new public safety facility. We would then renovate Village Hall. What this does is, once public safety moves out, we can actually use that space as swing space, so Village Hall could move into that space while we're renovating Village Hall. Once Village Hall is then done, kind of in that year 3, the year 4 is we would move what we're calling kind of station 2 into this new renovated public safety. And when I say renovated, it would just be the deferred maintenance pieces on that. There isn't much that would be needed to be able to house station 2 services out of what you currently have in public safety today. Some of the advantages that causes, I know it's a little different than what we went through all of these different options, but some of the advantages of this new sequence is it's a better organization. Currently, I think if you did an addition renovation here for public safety, that it would work, but there's always going to be constraints because it's an existing building, and an existing building has certain setbacks. It has certain things that maybe you won't touch in terms of structure, lines, and where maybe existing garages are, and just kind of how the building flows today. It would provide a better service model because you would be able to put the stations in a location that's going to provide the response time for your community. It's going to minimize interruptions of service. So as we think through construction, as we think through avoidance and disruptions of operations, being able to have the swing space here, being able to construct new while they're currently occupying a facility is going to help to make sure that there are no disruptions for your operations. And then it provides a better customer service function, which is safe and secure for your public and your village staff. So again, as we use the swing space, you are able to have a space that your community can still come to. They know that this is Village Hall, this is where they get their services, they can still come here, and they don't have to worry about trying to work through construction or walk through construction, or how as staff, how do we serve the community in a safe environment. It also provides the ability for your Village Hall, as we think through that different service model, it gives them the opportunity to do that because they could do that in the swing space that is currently in public safety. And what this also does is, our plan originally set out to look at that 20-year approach. This actually goes over and beyond that. It will set you up for long-term of whatever station 2 services want to be. Right now it's paid on call. If that model ever changes, if you add different functions or different services, you have now the ability to do that without maybe adding additions because you have the space currently within public safety to do that. If we think over 20 years and we leave public safety here today, you can't really expand your apparatus bay. So if we think of that, 30, 40 years, and you might need a new vehicle or you might need something, you're kind of landlocked, especially in fire, to be able to do that. So it just provides for those additional services and growth over and beyond what we were originally planning for. If you go to the next plan. So this is kind of what this looks like from our different priorities and the budget. So Public Works stays the same as it was. That one didn't get touched in either one of these scenarios. Public Safety, we removed, the public safety component from the combined square footage of public safety and Village Hall. So that's roughly about 48,000 square feet. So that would be a new public safety facility. The renovation to Village Hall. And then again, as we think through the renovation of your current public safety facility for Station 2, that would just be some additional deferred maintenance that would need to happen on that site. Questions?
I think when we started this conversation, a couple of months ago, Joel, when did this start?
Well, Kraus, Anderson, and Wold has been working on it for probably 8 months, 9 months now, roughly. But the last full presentation that we had was back in December, I believe.
December.
And that was really, so this is kind of a twofold project. The first phase was really to do a facility condition assessment of our current assets. That was what was presented in December. The next phase was, okay, we know this facility here is 30 years old. We're getting to a point where we need to start planning for life cycle replacements of systems and things of that nature. So if we're gonna do that, and we're gonna make this building last another 30, 40 years, do we make any renovative changes to the facility to meet today's kind of modern design standards for safety, security, and if you look at public safety as an example, they have existing holding cells in the police environment. We haven't used holding cells here as a jail for years. So just removing some of those apparatuses that were part of the original building that don't meet today's standards was something that we wanted to consider. The plan that Melissa has presented tonight, just to be clear too, is obviously it's a tough pill to swallow. It's a huge investment by the community. There's no doubt about that. There's no timeline established. I know they've placed, this is the priority year 1, 2, 3, 4. That purpose of that conversation is really just to show that there's a sequential nature to it. And it doesn't necessarily mean in a 5-year period, we're gonna spend $60 million on new facilities. That's not what that is intended. It's just to show a sequence of activities that would likely or logically take place if you were to go down that path. So a long answer to a short question, Gary, I apologize.
Well, no, I understand, but, we know the systems here are old and do need replacement. We've all been through that, the discussion has been said a number of times. When we first started this, you people at that table there are the ones that are going to be making the decision on what you need. We probably would be okaying it with your thoughts in mind. You are just presenting something what you think would work in a long-range program. That's what you're doing.
Correct.
So right now, with the presentation you gave versus what they want is where we should go next, as far as I'm concerned. To sit here and break this thing down and start discussing it more, I personally think we need the staff's input on what they think should be done. And I think that would probably be a direction to go in so that you people know what they need. We don't know.
Yeah, and I think, so far, what you've seen to date is a reflection of feedback that has been given to our planning group.
Have you people been involved in this?
Yeah.
You have been?
Yeah, the core planning group right now consists of myself, Greg Winholtz, Brian Rickert. Brian and his team, Steve and Lee, are involved to some degree. And then the chief has Deputy Chief Kozlowski and Commander Baxter, all part of that. In addition to that, and to some degree, the diagrams that were shown here were provided to us within the last couple of months. And so since that time, and knowing that we were going to give a status update to the board, we wanted to present that to our staff. So we've actually given this information to our department heads
Department heads are meeting with their staff, gathering feedback, recognizing that what you saw tonight is not a final plan by any means.
Okay.
It's more of a bubble diagram. It's like, where do people fit within the spaces that we want to program? Staff, department heads are asked to get feedback directly from all of their employees, line employees included, and then get that back to us, and then we'll round up after the draft with our planning team. I think we have a meeting scheduled for May 5th to provide feedback, and then at some point, there will be a final kind of presentation, if you will, to the board, and then it really comes down to what you saw tonight. It's of my understanding and my belief that the Public Works Garage is the priority. That's really what kind of precipitated even the study in general, because if you recall, there was an effort to add on and do some cold storage, but it never really addressed the maintenance needs of the systems. So that's why we wanted to go through and do this full condition assessment. But then it comes down to, it's a financial question, right? There's a number of challenges associated with big ticket items. We want to make sure that we can reasonably afford the projects, that we are doing it in a very efficient manner. So as an example, we have some referendum items that are going to be canceling out here in the next few years. And so is there a way to sequence some of this construction with prior projects like the community pool, the PAC, the community center, that will ultimately have less of a tax burden on the residents if we sequence and time the borrowings appropriately.
What time period are you looking, if you think this is the draft you're looking at, what time period are you looking for to get this all accomplished then?
Greg, you want to answer? Brian wants it done now.
Yeah.
Greg wants it done when the referendum bond issuances are expired. Chief just wants to know where he's gonna, where he can hole up in his office so that he's got a place to work. So I think ultimately, obviously, the Public Works is pretty short on space. So the quicker we can move on that, obviously that's still the priority. But I think it's gonna come down to when those bond issuances retire. And then basically, much like you see in a lot of school districts where they retire an existing equipment or bond issuance for a new school, oftentimes it gets replaced by another school or another larger project just to continually maintain their facility. So it would probably line up with that. And I don't know if Greg can provide feedback on when those are planned to be expiring.
That
Greg's
was
gonna
the
pull up
next
those
question
dates.
I was gonna ask. When is the money coming?
We have a few years yet before those bond issuances are retired. The other thing that I'll note, and you'll see it on tonight's agenda, not that this is going to have a substantial impact because it's a relatively smaller tax incremental finance district, but TID 4 is going to close out this year, so that does provide a bump. TID number 3 is it's planned to expire in 2029. There may be opportunities in the near future that's going to expire. TID number 3 is arguably one of the biggest and most successful TIDs in the state of Wisconsin, so that's going to provide a substantial bump. So there's going to be financial abilities for the village in the future. I wouldn't say that in next year's budget are we going to be able to do this without a substantial impact. But if we look at maybe next year, start planning and designing work, and in 2 or 3 years we start to look at construction, we're going to start to hit those windows of either debt cancellation or TID closure that's going to provide some additional cash to the village to support these types of projects.
Okay.
Yeah, just as a point of reference, there were 3 debt issues for those projects. The first one actually ended last year in 2024. The second one actually goes out to 2035. That was a 20-year issue. And the last one, the third debt issue, is done in 2026. So about 2/3 of that debt will be offline by the end of next year, actually by June 1st.
By 26.
26.
So I have 2 questions. If we could go back a slide. If I understood the presentation correctly, if we build a new public safety building, you said it was going to be minimal just to roll in what was in Station 2 into that new facility. So what's the almost $2 million plus for the priority 4? I'm not quite understanding that. To me, in my mind, is we would get rid of that resource. that asset.
Yeah, so Jay, what you'd be looking at is priority number 2 would be effectively taking, and this is the big pill to swallow and the big question that the board we're looking for feedback on, is you'd basically take the public safety building that's here today at 2155 Holmgren and build a new facility offsite somewhere at a location that makes
Right.
geographic sense. Public safety moves there. That's now Station 1. The existing station here at 2155 Holmgren effectively becomes Station 2. So there's some minor upgrades to that to make it workable. The existing Station 2 at Pioneer would be closed and sold, or it would no longer be a facility that's used for public safety purposes.
So,
Okay, so it still is felt that we need 2 stations then, 2 locations to cover the village.
That's where we're at today, currently, correct?
Okay. Then my next one would be, which I'm sure this is a real loaded question. Where is that priority 2 going to be built?
To be
Well,
determined.
we have some ideas, but we don't want to necessarily disclose them because then, that price
Sounds
per
good.
acre is gonna go
Prices
up.
might go up. Got it. I got a couple of things in my mind too, where I can maybe see that, and maybe it could be discussed at Western Racket in the morning, but anyway.
Amen.
All right, thank you.
So if I could just say, this is all proposed, and I saw it for the first time, one of the things that I was concerned of for our department, and it's kind of been discussed tonight, is, again, where would we go while construction was being done at public safety? It's hard to bring a sensitive crime in or a victim in for an interview when there's banging and pounding and people walking back and forth. Someone doesn't feel good trying to maybe give a statement for police, or someone doesn't feel comfortable coming in just because of the construction that needs to be done here at public safety. The other thing that was kind of concerning for us is that there's a lot of money that could be put into this building on this side for public safety, and it would be beautiful. But in 5 years or 4 years, are we looking, because we have expanded our department and now we've outgrown this?
Yeah.
We put all that money into this building and we still need to build something new. So that was our concern, thinking we want to make sure we do this and do this right with the amount of money that's putting in here, and not having to look at this in a few years wondering we still need a new building.
Yeah, that's very fair. And I think it goes back to Gary's initial point. You guys have to be telling us what's right for the village. You live it day to day. You got to be telling us. So,
and I think building a new building centrally located, we're on the northern edge of the community here. I could see this one being firehouse too, because of the district we have, the entertainment district we have here. But putting this in a centrally located area would take the burden off of East or West De Pere, have them as a backup for us. So I think I could really swing that way to put the main office in a central location to help the community. This would be taking care of what we got over here. It would just make sense,
Agreed.
When this thing was built 30 years ago, it was the cream of the crop in this building. And I remember coming here to the open house, but it's still on the northern end of the community. I disagreed with this building from the start. It belongs south someplace, but this land was available, and, this road wasn't even out here at that time. So this was the most reasonable place at the least amount of money. But it's time we move south. I wish it would be to a warmer climate too, but we'll have to do with the building.
So again, no decision tonight, just wanted to make sure that we were presenting and giving updates. If there's feedback that the board has for the planning group and our planning team from Wold and Kraus Anderson, by all means, we certainly entertain that. We want to make sure we're aligned in our planning efforts with what the board's desires are, so that when we finalize the study and it's a workable document that propels us for making future decisions, it's realistic, right? We want to make sure that it's realistic and not, kind of a pie in the sky type thing. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make it realistic and attainable and achievable for the village. And again, it's not something that's gonna happen next year. It's gonna happen over a sequence of time, and we wanna make sure that we are reflective of that.
Well,
Do you entertain a motion to suspend the rules for interested parties to speak?
Motion to
Board?
open the floor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I don't care,
Okay,
let the
we have a
man
motion
talk.
and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say
We're
aye.
gonna, yeah, Pat, you're gonna have to come to the table and state your name and address for the record.
You know, one question, Joel, before we have him speak. As long as we can put this together financially and not hurt the residents too bad on this, you know, with closing our TIFs and whatever, I think that's an important thing to the people around here. You know, we need it, you know, I don't think the people are gonna have a problem and wanting to help, but figuring out a way, like you said, financially be able to do it as this time comes around to do what we're all looking to have done.
Do you have the laser clicker back there yet?
I don't, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Patrick William Moynihan Jr.,
Holy
860
cripes.
Morris Avenue.
Thank you. Okay.
Allow me to,
Who?
oh,
Who?
can you go to the Village Hall reno, please, the diagram? Allow me to preface by saying I'm here as a citizen and a former duly elected clerk treasurer for the Village of Ashwaubenon who spent 7 years in this building. So my question is, I took a few notes last night when I discovered this yesterday.
You wanna, do you wanna hold the mic, if you're gonna turn towards, thank you.
Okay, I'll just go this way. First question. This is water utility and code enforcement, along with the clerk in an open setting. Would that be correct?
That is what that's shown. Again, these are bubble diagrams. We've just made sure we had people in the right spots. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's where those individuals will end up in the end.
That's a matter of detail that we aren't anywhere near.
And that was my question, because is the water utility and the code enforcement going to be cross-trained of clerk duties? Are there going to be computers on that computer, on the counter for voter registration using WisVote? Are there going to be staff cross-trained to do operator's license? If someone from the clerk's office is not available, and you're going to put these people in an awkward position, because you're going to have customers sitting at the counter waiting for someone else. Whereas right now, you have an intimate setting. I used to work in the office, I know what it's like. It's strictly clerk related. You have an intimate setting where you're dealing with privacy issues, DOBs, social security numbers. I don't think that's conducive in a wide open setting out there. So there's that. Also, last time I looked, the organizational chart, the deputy clerk's a 0.5. The other 0.5 works for the village attorney. Has that changed? Because now you're moving the deputy clerk across the hall, and she's going to be shuffling work product over to the village attorney. I just don't see that as a proper use of staff time. And, excuse me, I think the catalyst, a lot of this is Bellin. Would that be a correct statement?
Well, I mean, it's a component of the plan, right, to improve the clinic. It's definitely been a conversation.
Okay. So my thoughts as a citizen, instead of breaching the wall and putting them essentially in the attorney's office, was there any thought, no one uses this courtyard. I was in this building for 7 years, no one uses it. You could build it there and contain it instead of broaching the building and having that scenario. Just a thought. You can dismiss this as you will, I'm sure, when I walk out of here, but for what it's worth. I guess those are the biggest things. I just don't see movement, and the
Clerk Teskey may not even agree with anything I'm saying here, but I can't see, because you're closing up this aisle also, right?
Yeah, so Patrick, just to kind of big picture wise, part of the discussion, and I'll preface it on two things. One, the way this is laid out right now is just to show the space needs for each area. People could move, shake. We've already had actually conversations after this presentation was put together about, well, that's not gonna work. As to your point about
Okay.
code enforcement being here, and are they gonna be cross-trained to take utility bill questions? No. So we've had those conversations. But the bigger picture was we wanted to centralize customer service versus our current setup of a decentralized customer service environment. So that's a policy decision that was part of the guidelines that we presented to the board even back in December, that when customers come into Village Hall, they're often misdirected because they don't know what counter to go to. So by having a centralized counter as you come into the public lobby, that was the intent. So if you're familiar with other communities, one that really quickly comes to mind is Grand Chute.
Right.
You walk in and you have individually windows, but it's all centralized within the main lobby. So it'd be similar to that, where you can still segregate functions at a main customer counter, but it's all central, so you don't have to, like, do I go down that hallway, do I go down that hallway, that type of thing.
And I get it, it's a utopian, I mean, I hear it from the county executive now for future. But the thing with Bellin, you got a lot of room there and contain it. You wouldn't have to do any of this stuff, and you can save some money by not doing anything. For even in-person absentee voting, I don't know how you would do it here when you can use that aisle. Again, just having had been here and been there, done that. Does it, for all this minutia, what's the head count increase since January of 2021 that you need all this? I don't think you need to do all this. I don't have a vote.
Yeah.
But maybe someday.
What I will add is that, so what you have here outside of those hashed areas, those are all existing positions. So one could argue that in the next 30 or 40 years, are you gonna have more? I'm not saying you will, but there's really limited space for future expansion for additional headcount. That is the headcount. What you're seeing, though, is additional space for open areas. There's some additional conference rooms that we don't have. There's additional break areas. We're eliminating certain hallways within the facility by adding additional hallways for secure exit. We've had a number of incidents in Village Hall over the past 12 to 18 months. From a safety and security standpoint, we want to basically contain some of the threat areas within the building so our staff can safely exit. Just to answer your question, there's any number of scenarios that could be used to plan this. Moving the clinic to the courtyard. I don't know if we've talked about that with Melissa, maybe we did. I know we've talked about it internally. It's come up. We've talked about the clinic moving down to the village president's office because there's water down there and having access off the vestibule.
Actually, you could do it right there because you already got the plumbing infrastructure on the backside for the employees.
There's 1,000 options, so give us your feedback,
Sign
send it
me
to
up.
us by May 5th so that we can talk about it. As I mentioned, every staff member has been given this information, and I'm sure with your experience as a clerk, and Chris can certainly attest to this, her staff are gonna go through it, and they're gonna take a lens that's very specific to their operations. We know that on a presidential, even a gubernatorial election, that's a pretty substantial impact to the facility for really a 3-week span, a really heavy 3-week span. What does this do for that? And so I trust that Chris is gonna look at that from her staff perspective and say, if we set it up this way, it's not gonna work in these circumstances. Okay, fair enough. Let's go back to the.
And you wore a clerk's hat once upon a time, so you should have insight to that.
Yeah, I'll trust Chris, but yeah.
Right.
You don't wanna trust
definitely.
my
Well,
intuition.
And like I said to Chris before too, I mean, this level of detail in this plan right here is not what it's gonna look like.
Well, then I apologize, because I thought this was a near
No.
end
This is not what it's going to look like at all. So that's, like I said, what I said is, this is not a level of detail that we're discussing
Well, if anything, Madam President, I get to see all these smiling faces. I know everyone just about here, other than the counselor on the end. The last time I was in this room, this gentleman was still here. He's left and he's back. Go figure. But I just wanted to point
Yes.
these few things out, having been here 7 years myself. So with that,
If, Patrick,
leave
if
you
you'd
alone.
like Joel said, send us an email with all your thoughts. We'll add them to everybody else's when we start discussing that level of detail.
I think it's been pretty much laid out.
Okay,
Except public
We'll
safety,
put it in the
Patrick.
minutes. There you go.
okay. Thank you. Before we close the floor, does anybody else want to say anything about any of this stuff? Did you want to add anything at all, Chris? No? Okay. Okay.
Motion to close the floor.
Second?
Motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Floor is closed.
One other
Okay.
question on the plan total, is this gonna include at all, obviously Gary brought it up, it's a big expense for this stuff. Will this plan include at all ideas on financing? Greg, will your information be put in there that we can say, okay, the TIFs are closing on this date, so this borrowing is ending on this date? So we get kind of an idea on, obviously, that'll impact the timeline for the project as well. And I don't know if there's any state funding available for a new public safety building or federal funding, I shouldn't even say that in this environment right now, but is that something that we should be looking at or just keep in mind as we're moving forward with this plan?
I think for the architect's point of view, obviously, they're putting together the numbers, and then, Greg and the internal team will kind of piece together what that would look like over a sequential period of time.
Okay.
So we'll do that on our end. Obviously, we'll use their estimates.
All right.
With that, certainly any grants, any opportunities that way, we'll definitely take a look at that. Obviously, that type of environment's a little bit volatile right now, so. But with that being said, in a year or 2 years, it may be solidified, and there could be
Right.
future opportunities that don't exist today.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah, that was a good question. I see a lot of new fire stations in the northern part of the state here. They gotta be getting some state, grants or something for it. So it's something we should look at when that time comes. I know Door County got a couple new ones.
So with that, there's no action needed. This is just a simple update,
this
so
was a
thank
whole
you,
lot of
Jordan, thank you,
information.
Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
First time she was here, I thought this place was gonna fall apart, but the walls stayed up.
Better this time?
Yeah, we're all right now.
Okay, 9E, consider, discuss, act on a request to waive certain noise requirements for a licensed outdoor area pursuant to Municipal Code 3-2-92, parent C, parent 5 for Stadium View Sports Bar.
I think
Chris?
I'll take this one, I think. So Stadium View Sports Bar is requesting a temporary noise extension. This request is to extend the hours for amplified music from 11 p to midnight on April 24th, 25th, and 26th during the NFL Draft. Under our municipal code, there are components within the physical requirements of an outdoor licensed premise which allow for the village board to create a waiver of requirements under that section. It does require a 2/3 vote. So if the board is in agreement with that, a motion to waive certain noise requirements under that section of code for the 3 dates mentioned from 11 p to 12 p, 12 a, would be appropriate.
There's gonna be a party there all week. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the waiver of certain noise requirements for Stadium View Bar for April 24, 25, 26 from 11 p to 12 a. Any other comments?
I just have a question. So this is specifically only for Stadium View Bar?
That is correct. Under the code, it would require a written request from each operator, so it would not be village-wide. It would just be specific to an operator. Theoretically, somebody could still turn in a request tomorrow, and it could come forward to the next village board meeting, but it would be specifically for Stadium View and their outdoor licensed premise.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking, because I think once this gets out, that if we waive this for Stadium View, we're gonna have other entertainment areas in that area want to do the same thing. And I wanted to make sure they had a chance to do that if they chose to do it. So they could come at the April 15th or whatever the heck we're gonna reschedule our meeting, and then they could have permission at that point if we decided to go there.
Yep, and then we, for any of the establishments within the sports and entertainment district, for those that we had email addresses for, we did email them that requirement. So they were made aware that if they wish to extend their hours for noise, they would need to issue that in writing.
Okay,
The request
great.
in writing.
Okay, thank you.
I had talked to a couple of them, they weren't interested.
They weren't?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. 9F, consider, discuss, act on a request from Bird to initiate a dockless stand-up electric scooter program for the village of Ashwaubenon during the NFL draft. Joel?
All right, thank you, Madam President. I think Jimmy is on the line. Jimmy is awake from our long presentation, so thanks, Jimmy, for sticking through this. Jimmy Gilman is on the line. He represents Bird Scooters, Bird Rides, Inc., I believe is they're doing business as. So they're looking to initiate an agreement with the village to provide dockless stand-up electric rental scooters in the village for not only necessarily the 2025 season, if you will, because they don't necessarily operate over the winter months. However, but what they are looking for in particular is the period of days surrounding the NFL draft. If you're not familiar with Bird, it is an app-based dockless scooter program. So basically it's a two-wheel scooter that people can use their smartphone to scan a QR code to activate the scooter and basically use it to and pay for its usage through its app system to basically provide transportation from what they consider kind of that last mile. So you may drive to a certain destination, can only get so far driving, and now to get to that next or last mile, you could certainly rent a scooter to do that. They're parked in certain geographic locations. Anybody could go up to them, rent them using the application, and then again, leave the scooter wherever their final destination is. They don't need to locate a specific parking location to leave the scooter. They could leave it where their endpoint is. My understanding is that riders must be at least 18 years of age to use it, and then there's a series of questions that the rider must go through in order to activate the scooter. The scooters do use smart technology, so they are what we call geofenced. So depending on where you want to utilize the scooter, if Bird and the village have established a boundary, if you will, for where the scooters can operate, the scooter is smart enough to know that the scooter is intending to leave that geofenced area and not be able to be operational in that area. At present, the city of Green Bay has an agreement with Bird Scooters. They have had an agreement for a number of years, I think maybe three or so years with Bird. And they are also planning to have an agreement with Bird to use during the NFL draft as well. So normally Bird, I believe Jimmy only operates May through like October or November. And so this agreement would extend it so that they could pick up the additional dates of the draft. I did put some research in there. This item has come forward to the village in the past. The village has not recommended entering into an agreement with Bird. That's primarily based on recommendations coming from public safety. I did look at some of the other communities that have had Bird scooters that have they either still have them or they've kind of relinquished or discontinued the service, and included some articles in that correspond to some of the recommendations that public safety has had in the past. In this particular case, public safety is still not recommending the village to provide the dockless stand-up electric scooter program. It's a variety of reasons, especially around the NFL draft. Obviously, with the increase of pedestrians, and you can't geofence it to a degree where it stays out of a specific pedestrian area and not others. So there are concerns about the scooters and pedestrians and potential for crashes, especially in those heavy pedestrian areas surrounding the campus. We have seen and we've certainly heard from prior press reports about scooters being left in the public domain, whether that's in the middle of sidewalks, in the middle of streets, in people's front yards, things of that nature. And so because of that, we're concerned about the number of complaints that may come into the village then as a result of that, and now we have to respond to those complaints and address those. We're also concerned about the scooters being operated by individuals under the influence of alcohol, and that could ultimately result in some crashes and injuries, thus, creating an increasing demand for services for our EMS team, especially in the draft. And then, with the added work that goes into it in maintaining a program like that, we're worried that it may not be cost effective. It's my understanding Green Bay does not get reimbursed for their agreement. And as a result of that, there will be, even though Bird manages the program, we're still dealing with the complaints and the responses as it relates to the issues that may be present from a program like this. And so because of that, we wouldn't necessarily be compensated for the additional costs of staff time and resources that would go into maintaining that program. So with that, again, public safety is not necessarily recommending the use of bird scooters in the village of Ashwaubenon. However, Jimmy Gilman from Bird is on the line, so if the board is interested in learning more about bird scooters and maybe how Bird will address some of the concerns that staff has presented to you tonight, I certainly encourage you to allow him to be able to speak on that on his behalf.
Chief, I'd like to hear your comments on it.
Sentiments exactly. This was brought to us, and our biggest concern is the amount of people that we're expecting in this area trying to now have a scooter come through and I can't tell you the speeds that they're at, but there's not a, excuse me, could you please get out of my way? It's going to be in someone's way. We see it where someone now starts to go fisticuff with somebody because someone got bumped, someone spilled my nachos, someone spilled my beer, or how dare you get in front of me with this? Where do they go on the road? How are they operating it safely? Where do they put this? And then in the morning, how do we have to pick all these up? Or if there is damage to it, do they want us to now take criminal damage complaints and try to find these people and give them municipal citations for damaging? And then are they looking at restitution? As we try to figure out how to move people to and from, this we did not feel was a certain way for them to move them, especially where we're at with our, if you want to call it our footprint around this whole area, just because of the limited area that we have. I mean, it's going to be bad enough that people just trying to walk through there, much less trying to now move with a scooter. So again, our biggest thing for us was safety, and then of course the extra workload of now either taking complaints because of people in their way, and then of course if there's damage or why are these things laying in the middle of the road.
I kind of agree with you. We're doing different road closures and different parking things right now that with the number of people coming in our area, and that's a problem in itself. We got enough problems with these running around the community as I see it right now. I can see them running up and down the streets using no common sense whatsoever with rules of the road. And personally, there's enough birds coming from the south back to our area now that I think it's not necessary to have them. So I'm going to move to deny this.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny the request from Bird to allow bird scooters in the village of Ashwaubenon. Any comments?
Just under discussion, one of the things I think the village has to think about is micromobility and moving people through our community by foot, by bike, by scooter, by anything besides a motor vehicle. And I don't agree that the scooters should be at the draft because we've never had them in Ashwaubenon. So to have them come when we have the draft and thousands of people here is just not really a good idea, I don't think. Having said that, I think it's something we should research further. And maybe the bike ped committee can take this on and look into this a little further and decide, do we really want to do this? And work with Jimmy and Bird and see what the intricacies are. I mean, when Tom was talking about, he had a lot of questions. Are we responsible for criminal damage? Do we have to take reports? Do we have to move them? Do we have to do this, this, and this? Let's get those answers, and maybe next year we decide, hey, let's try the scooters in a certain area. Let's do something. But I just think for now, it's not the time for the draft, but I would love to further it and do some more research into it, and maybe have the bike ped committee do some more research and figure it out and see if we can do it sometime in the future.
Well,
I agree, Tracy. Sorry, Gary.
if you want to understand where they are, go down Tony Canadeo and see what they're like. They're piled up down there in front of one of the beverage establishments. And, you know, I get around the community a little bit, and you see them laying around all over. Now, your idea of finding out your questions, it's worth a look at, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay's been doing it for, I think, 3 years, Joel, at least somewhere around there. And they've had their issues. You know, I've talked to Stephanie, who runs their program, and they've worked with Bird and worked some of those things out. So I think there's ability to do it, but we just need to be smart about it and see if it really fits in our community. And let's take the time and do it and do the research and see if we can figure it out. If we can't, we can't. At least we've done our due diligence on making that decision. But I think for the draft, we definitely need to say no.
I've had experience a little bit myself with Bird using them down in Texas, visiting my kids down there. I had a ball with them. I've got nothing against the product itself. But two comments made. One is you know, not right now. We got no experience up here, and to throw it in there for the Super Bowl, I mean for the draft, that'd be nuts. But Gary brought up a good point too that I wasn't thinking about before. Is that I've been wanting to complain about the motorized small, you know, bikes and boards and whatnot that these kids are on right now, or young people, even adults, that are buzzing around our streets and just blowing through four-way stops. And I've said it at these meetings before. It's going to come to a point where public safety is going to be scraping somebody off the ground, and it's something we can look at in the future, but not for the draft. It's not time to test it for that during that period.
Okay, with that being said, are we all under the understanding that we definitely don't want bird scooters for the draft? And at some other longer time period, we'll look at if somebody wants to bring that back, so.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Just, Joel, President, would I be able to make comment or only to answer a question? Just a few things I'd love to just bring to the board if possible.
Sure. Because you're on the agenda, we don't need to open the floor for this, but sure, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, and thank you for considering and for having me tonight. Just a few things that it may not change the consideration today, but wanted to bring at least awareness to. So I think even, you know, we would be interested if the board were interested in a very small and targeted area for the draft. Even just sort of the square of Marley Lane, Brookwood, and then Ridge to the east, because that's where we'll see some ingress into the draft itself. So I think, you know, we'd love any consideration even of that small footprint sort of around the Titletown area, and a little bit west where we'll see the ingress into the area itself. We can also speed govern the devices down essentially to pedestrian speeds in that footprint. So down to 4 miles per hour or 5 miles per hour to make sure that there is that safe intermixing of devices, of micromobility users and pedestrians. And I also will say, if it did sway the board, we'd be interested in talking about a revenue share agreement to make sure that, Joel, to your point, any costs or planning efforts would be recouped as well. So wanted to throw those considerations out there. I could go deeper into, you know, inebriation detection technology, dedicated parking zones, and things like that as well. But I think just to respond to a couple of the questions and points, wanted to at least bring that up, maybe hear any feedback, and then also continue the conversation too. So
Okay.
thank you, board, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. So the chief would like to respond.
Yeah, so Jimmy, with regards to the Marley Lay, Brookwood areas, unfortunately, you probably don't know, but that whole area and the traffic patterns have all changed because of the amount of traffic, motorized, that is going to be coming into that area. I would definitely not have any type of scooters in that area just because of that. And the people that are coming in here that expect us to kind of be like the traffic patterns for a Packer game day are going to be very surprised at what we've done to change that, that we had to change it. And then, of course, you have all the people that come in that don't know this area, that we've now made one-way traffic with many, many signs, and now we have these people on scooters. That's just a recipe for disaster, and I don't see anything good that would come out of that, unfortunately.
And I think, Chief, and I've seen only initial blueprints of what the layout will look like for the draft. I do know, I think there's a ingress point over by Marley Lane. Am I saying that correctly, to get into the footprint itself, or is it further west?
It's not. It's and again, I'm not sure how much the NFL or what has been handed out yet, but that whole area, a lot of that traffic is going to strictly be coming off of Interstate 41, and from buses to shuttles to, again, the traffic movement that is in that area. There's just no way we can have scooters trying to either mingle or try to get into the traffic lane and move with that amount of traffic that we are expecting, the overload especially. And then now we talk about the foot traffic that we're going to try to maintain and make sure it's secure and can get into this draft. It's just a very, very difficult situation to try to allow these scooters to be in. It would give me a nightmare thinking about how we would have your scooters in there, sir.
So I think, yep, there's a motion on the floor
Correct.
to
To deny.
If I understand the motion correctly, it would be to deny for the draft. It sounds like the board is willing to have a conversation maybe in the future. We can certainly take this back to the Bike and Ped Committee for a future conversation. Maybe there's opportunities outside of the draft.
Correct.
But I'm just kind of helping the board.
Yep, we have a motion and a second to deny the request for the NFL draft. Does everybody understand it?
Yep.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried, thank you. 9G.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consider, discuss, act on resolution R 3-1-2025, terminating or dissolving TID number 4 in the village of Ashwaubenon. Greg.
Come on, Greg.
I'm just here for see all you guys. So it's that time. We talked briefly earlier with the facilities today about our TIF districts closing. So TID 4, a year ago, we put through a resolution to extend it 1 year for housing. And now we're at that point where we need to put in a resolution to formally close that TIF district. So that's what this is doing. It's closing it. There's some paperwork that we need to take care of, and then a final audit, which will happen this summer. I've already talked to the auditors about that. So that's really all this is doing, is closing that TIF, officially closing it out. And from there, the valuation for next year would be final payment in, and there's a bunch of rules that go with that, how much gets put in tax relief and things like that, which we'll present, I think, through the audit, when the audit is done, and formally show how that's all gonna work. They'll have the final numbers, there's still a very small portion of debt to pay off, so we'll have to make sure that that's covered first. It's callable debt, so it's not a big issue. It's literally like $60,000. It's not very much at all. But they'll have a final audit at that point, and then we'll present that and then explain how that money goes out for mostly tax relief, and then what portions go to each of the jurisdictions when they get their share. So this is just simply the resolution to formally terminate that TIF 4. It was a great TIF, worked well for us. We can't go off of TIF two, $441 million of increment that was unique. This actually was a very good district for us. And it's somewhere around 100 million maybe in valuation is really worked well. We were able to get a lot of stuff done in that area, and TID 4 was kind of the southwest quadrant of the village, so it worked well.
Greg, can I just clarify? So
I will,
so it'll close this year. Then do we have that extra year next year, or did we have the extra year already for the affordable
I already
housing?
had the extra year.
Yeah, we already had the extra year.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So at that,
So I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution R3-1-2025 approving the termination and dissolution of TID number 4 in the village of Ashwaubenon.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution R3-1-2025. Any other discussion on this? I have to say that this is kind of fun because I was on the board when we started this TIF, and I'm on the board while we're ending this TIF, so that's a cool thing. Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. 9H, consider, discuss, act on grant application request for a public safety drone. Chief?
Batteries did, Greg. So Capital Credit Union has a grant program. It's called the Elevate Communities, and what it's designed for is to assist public safety departments, police, fire, or rescue, with helping get them tools or items that they may not have in a budgeted to get. We kind of apply something like this every year, or at least when I was back, we did. But with bringing it to the board, one of the things that we're looking at is a drone. The drone that we're looking for is a specialized drone, and that's why the amount, what we're looking for with this grant is as high as it is because of the specialty of it. And just to go offhand, there's a couple departments that use them, and we've requested to come into the village when we've needed it for certain calls. Unfortunately, sometimes they haven't also been available. For instance, we had a call of a car crashes, rolls over, starts on fire. We get there, there's no driver. Is that driver hurt? Is that driver intoxicated and running away, or what? At that time, we were able to get a drone out to us. Unfortunately, it was 45 minutes later, and within maybe 30 minutes, through the infrared of that drone, they were able to see that there was a suspect hiding about a half mile away in the weeds, confused, intoxicated, and so forth. So life-saving issues, number one, but it was also helping us find someone who, A, shouldn't have been out there, / trying to get away from us. The other reasons we'd like to use a drone is, for instance, our elderly nursing homes. Someone gets up, walks away, they call us and say, hey, this person's missing. Normally, as officers, we go out and we scour the area and look for them. With a drone, it gets up, it can detect where someone may be or maybe has fallen or whatnot. We can certainly help them out. On a fire scene, since we have that as well, some of these big buildings down in the industrial park, the first thing we do is when we get onto a scene of a big building is that what's called as a 360, we try to walk all the way around the building. Well, if there's smoke and flames coming and we need to figure out where we are going to attack it, sometimes we can't get around a building to see where that is because there's fences. A drone gets up, gets around, can pinpoint exactly what we need to see, and helps us, utilize quickly getting in to put a fire or something like that out. So there's a lot of great things we can use this for. We're looking to see if Capital Credit Union will give us the monies through their grant this year, and this is why we're here applying for it.
Chief, how many people in the area have one right now?
Hobart has one, and I believe the county has one. I know the county has something on a tether that goes straight up. That we wouldn't be able to use, but we have used Hobart's before. But again, it's kind of hard if they need it and we need it.
Well, you need it now. You don't need to call somebody and a half hour later he comes, I think common sense says it's a thing to get, especially on a grant or whatever you're trying to get it on, so. No other questions, I'll move to approve item,
And I'll second it.
item H.
One further question though, Chief, is everything all encompassed in the grant? The training, the, you know, and all, and the licensing and all that, is that all included in the grant?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
If you look at there's a couple different pages we have. One is a quote, but then on the grant itself, mine is not paged, but on the handle that I gave you, I believe page 5 shows you a total cost, and we put the tariff 10% in there just in case. It was at $18,907.90. And again, this is what we're looking for with this grant to, again, cover our costs, but again, licensing, training, and the whatnots with what's described in here, FAA license.
I was gonna say FAA has something to do with this also, if I remember.
Yes,
Somebody
and that's
talking to me about it.
rather expensive, $2,625 for just an FAA license.
Okay.
Is that an annual thing, Tom, do you know, or
No,
is that?
I did ask that because I wasn't sure, and Lieutenant Limbo, who was kind of spearheading this, said no, it was a one-time fee.
Okay.
One thing I do want to ask too, Chief, like how often do you think that we have to replace? Does this have like a 5-year life, a 2-year life? Do we know?
I don't, but what is unique about this is that the person that's selling this and would be working on this or maintaining this for us is a former Green Bay police officer, and he now has his own company, and he's very well versed in these. So it's not just a, hey, go down to Target and find something off the shelf and buy it, and then, yeah, it doesn't work. He knows specifically what's needed, what works, what's going to last, especially in our climate. And again, if something were to happen, he's able to fix it instead of us sending it someplace down south to pick up. So I can't tell you the life of these, unfortunately. I mean, for that kind of money, I certainly hope it's a little bit longer than 5 years, but it's like everything else, you know, we do their best.
One of the things I'd asked Joel about, and Tom, is we have a drone that Jackson has. I just happened to see it in his office, and I'm like, I didn't know we had a drone. But evidently it's not going to be able to be used for this type of work. It's not that type of drone. But the other question I had is, does Jackson need training as well? Could he go to the training that you guys have, or is it totally different? And can he have the FAA license the same for this one, or are there separate ones?
So, right. And I had talked to Jeremy about this as well. So apparently Jackson did do some of this online.
Okay.
And he tried to get a licensing and wasn't able to so far. Now he's going to continue to try, but the way that drone also was used, and you're right, Tracy, it was a different way for kind of checking out buildings, but that wouldn't be used, and it couldn't be used for what we want it for. I mean, at night, it doesn't have infrared to show us what we want to see. Again, battery life or just the durability of it. There's just, you know, it's just unfortunately not set that way. And I believe they also that they are looking at upgrading that just because of the age of that and what it could be used for. So, but yes, to your point, Jackson, I know is trying to obtain some type of licensing as well.
Yeah, just to add on to Tracy's question and the answer on the drone. So the drone that we have that Jackson is attempting to get licensed for was basically just given to the village. It was a private organization that was using it for marketing purposes. Essentially donated it to public safety, and because of the reasons that Chief had mentioned, they didn't really have a need for it. So they asked admin if we wanted to use it. We're like, yeah, we can try it. I mean, we can figure out if we can get licensed to use it to take some marketing photos throughout the community. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. And it's an older drone, so there is some, you know, opportunities to upgrade it or replace it, but we're still evaluating the real need for that and the expense behind it. So because we could rent one and maybe rent and have somebody with a license do it for us, cheaper than what we could do. We just thought, and I think Jackson's put in a valiant effort just trying to do it on his own, because it's kind of a neat thing for him. And then we had the drone free anyway, so.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve to move forward with the grant application for the drone. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. 9I, consider, discuss, act on ordinance 03-1-25, amending chapter 7, traffic and vehicles, article 4, parking. Joel.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. So in your packet, there is an ordinance that effectively will amend portions of section 74100 and amend section 4102. I'm gonna start with the latter first, just because it may be fresh in the minds of the board. So if you recall, last month, we amended 7402 to add a paragraph that we are now looking to strike and go back. And the reason for that is as we went through the board meeting last month and then began talking from a staff perspective on how we wanted to go about signing this, we recognized that we could actually gain some efficiencies by ordering some signs that say no parking by police order, and then place them over the top of no parking on Packer game day for the draft, for any other special event, and then that way it is much clearer and succinct to the user, or to the parker, if you will, that they cannot park there. So our public works staff, in fact, some of our line workers came up with this solution, and it was a really good idea. So that saves us some time, saves us some money as well for the upcoming draft, because we're not replacing the hard signs then that say no parking on Packer game day. We're gonna keep those signs, they're gonna stay there, they're gonna be used for Packer game season. We're just gonna cover them with these, they're a little bit more robust than a temporary sign, but it'll go over the top of them. That'll be an orange sign, an orange placard, real bright colored, that says no parking by police order, which will be very comparable and similar to the temporary signs that we place on some T-posts within the area. So that's section 4-74102, basically reverting the code back to what had been previously in place prior to last month. Then, based on last month's conversation, it was noted that there are a number of streets in the code that were identified as no parking. However, they were not posted as no parking, thus rendering it basically unenforceable from a parking standard. So section 74100 effectively removes the streets, and those are the ones that are struck from the code, as well as amending certain streets in which there may be segments of that street that are not posted as no parking. In your packet, there was a map that identified the parking restrictions for the code, and I'm going to attempt to share my screen here briefly so you can see that. Hopefully, Jay, you can see that map. So this is the map that's in your packet. Again, all the areas that are listed as existing, no parking on all sides, those are solid lines. Those streets reflect the changes that have been identified in the code proposal. Those streets are currently posted or will be posted as no parking at all times. The areas that have the dashed lines minus red or yellow, so blue, green, orange, pink, or purple, those are no parking on Packer game days. And those signs will remain as indicated under that change in code. And then finally, the areas that are marked in red or yellow, those will be marked no parking by police order for the days of the NFL draft. So again, just to reiterate, the areas that are marked in dash lines, no parking Packer game day, they will be given a special placard that says no parking by police order for the draft. The areas that are marked in red and yellow will be signed no parking by police order. So with that, I'll happy to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, looking for a motion to approve the ordinance.
Joel, so, Morse Avenue is not having any parking at all. That is a street that will try and make a through street through Ashwaubenon, seeing everything else is blocked off. Is that the reason for Morse?
Morris will be a much heavier used street as a result of the traffic control plan that we're working through with the NFL draft. So just to kind of give you a quick synopsis, much of the traffic off the interstate is going to be routed off of routed two different ways as they come off of onto Lombardi Avenue. One is if they're northbound on the 41 and they get off here and they want to travel east, they will get to Argonne and then be forced down Argonne Street one way south to Morris. When they get to Morris, they'll be forced to go east to park in the neighborhood. If I'm traveling, and you can't see it on the map, but if I'm traveling southbound on the 41 and I exit at Lombardi, I can go east, but I will be forced to be in the northbound lanes and then forced up Military to park in the neighborhoods north of Lombardi. If I travel west down Hazelwood, I can turn onto Shady, and that's why you have no parking on Shady, and then you'll be forced to go down Morris to get into the neighborhoods for parking. And that's just the ingress for the 3 draft days. That's why Shady, Morris are listed as no parking on both sides, because you will see a significant increase in traffic on the ingress portion of the draft days. On the egress portion, everything kind of reverses itself. So Morris to Shady to Hazelwood to 41.
And on this map, any of the dashed lines, those are just for the draft days.
Yes, the red and yellow are no parking for the draft, and then anything that's normally listed as no parking Packer game days, those will also be no parking for the draft.
Right. Okay.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 03-1-25. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. 9J, consider, discuss, act on ordinance 03-2-25, amending chapter 6, businesses, article 12, mobile food establishments. Joel.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. This is just a simple temporary ordinance, if you will, so we'll go, if approved, go into effect a day before the draft is to begin on April 23rd, and it will expire on April 28th. So just as you note that this is going into effect for a temporary purpose to support the operations of the draft. There are 3 main changes to the ordinance itself that, and let me stop sharing my screen so you don't have to look at that. Okay, thank you. There's 3 main components to the ordinance, and the first one would be to allow a food truck not to have to return to its service space within a 24-hour period. There was a media report today about some food trucks that are going to be located inside the draft campus, or surrounding the draft campus, and so it may become difficult for them to return to their service space because of security issues and access control issues within the site. This is normally a requirement under county or state health code, but the health officer at the county has the ability to basically not require that return every 24 hours. So if the county health officer allows for that food truck to stay in place over longer than a 24-hour period, this revision would allow under our code the same. So as long as the health officer says you don't have to return, they don't have to return for the draft days. What this does also is clarify and add further restriction as it relates to where mobile food establishments may operate, which will prohibit them from operating on any public street, public right-of-way, sidewalk, or park. Our code did state that before, but this adds some much clearer and cleaner language that would disallow that. So a mobile food establishment, in order to operate in the village, particularly on the dates of this ordinance, would be on private property with written permission, so many feet away from a public way or sidewalk, so as not to impede on the travel of motorists or pedestrians around the draft.
So you're saying anywhere?
No parking on streets, sidewalks, or public ways.
But you could park one in your driveway.
Nope. So under current code, you would not be able to park a mobile food truck and operate it in a residentially zoned parcel. So this would only apply to, that's how the current code reads, is that mobile food establishments can only operate in commercial or industrial zone properties.
Okay, all right, got you.
So there's no change in that. And then finally, we have a maximum number of food trucks that are able to operate within a single parcel, and the current code limits it to 3. This provision would eliminate that maximum requirement. So as an example, you heard tonight, Rosa Wine wants to operate a permitted establishment on a property near the corner of Holmgren and Lombardi. There's a number of food trucks that are hoping to locate on that same vacant parcel. It will likely be more than 3. By eliminating that provision of the code for those 3 days, it would allow more than 3 to operate under that area.
Is there a maximum number?
There is not a maximum for the day. It obviously has to fit the parcel, right? And then the other thing that I will also mention, gotta find the provision. There is also a component, and I regretfully admitted this in my staff memo. The hours of operation under our current code are limited to 8 hours per day. We made it available for 20 hours per day, and the purpose for that is it aligns with how they can operate within the sports and entertainment district. So 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. is effectively the dates that they could operate within the sports and entertainment district. Again, these provisions within the ordinance are temporary. They would only last for the 4 days that are identified within the ordinance. Again, providing a greater degree of flexibility for where food trucks can operate in and around the draft, but then also providing some further clarification on the restrictions on their use and their ability to sell and vend within public streets, rights of way, parks, so on and so forth. So with that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have on this proposed ordinance.
So they could not have any food trucks in any of the parks.
That's unless the Parks and Rec Department
say.
Provided written approval to do that. So our current code does provide that as an opportunity, but it would come with written permission from the Parks and Rec
Department. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Any
I'll
other
move to
questions? Whoop. You move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance 03-2-25, amending chapter 6, mobile food establishments. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, K, just consider, discuss, act on NFL draft special event road closures.
In your packet, you have this particular map that is on your screen. This is, as of the end of February, this is the proposed road closure map that the NFL has prepared for the upcoming draft. In accordance to our special event policy, in order for a special event permit to be issued by the village clerk's office, the board has to approve or grant permission to close any arterials or collectors within the village of Ashwaubenon. Obviously, we've been well aware of these situations, and the board has been updated on these closures several times over the past several weeks or months. This is more of a formality for the board at this point to approve the granting of closure of those particular streets like Ridge, Oneida Street, and Holmgren Waive in support of the NFL draft. There are a number of conditions that still have to be met before the special event permit is issued, such as a certificate of insurance and a hold harmless agreement, which we are working currently with the NFL to solidify. So this would just more or less give staff the authority to issue the permit when all the other conditions have been met.
The only question I have on that, Joel, I've talked to you about it, but the main roads of Oneida Street and Ridge Road are all business roads. Can the NFL be asked to get them roads opened as soon as possible?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. We have a kind of a weekly transportation group that we meet with, and so we can certainly request that. I will note that the dates that are on here certainly extend beyond the last day of the draft. Those are the dates that they've identified as kind of worst case scenario. So the understanding is that the hope is to have them open much sooner than the dates identified, but for, various unforeseen circumstances, weather, things of that nature, that's the date that they had posted.
Okay, that'd be a big help to do that as soon as.
I'd move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the NFL draft special event road closures when all of the demands are met. Okay, everybody understand that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 9L, consider, discuss, act on change to the regular village board meeting schedule for April 2025. Joel?
So just a quick note here, obviously April 22nd is the Tuesday preceding the draft. We can certainly meet on that date. I think we certainly have the ability to do that. But to just ease some of the burden for staff and some of the opportunities that maybe last minute business planners are hoping to arrange plans for. So as an example, somebody issues a written request to extend their music hours. By putting it to April 15th, it gives them a little bit more opportunity to make sure that they get their orders or their affairs in order, rather. So we're requesting the board consider moving the regularly scheduled meeting for April 22nd to April 15th, 1 week earlier. There's a number of committees that would normally meet on that date, and my understanding is none of those committees would have items for their agendas, so they likely won't meet on that night. So with that, board action to approve meeting or moving the regular meeting to April 15th would be appropriate, and then you can decide whatever time you want. So if you want to go at 9 a.m., that'd be fine too. If you want to do 6 p.m., that's fine as well.
And I'd really like to see something done during the day if it's possible. I know both Chris's are looking at me like, you gotta be kidding me. You're the two working people that are paying our social security. But,
No, Gary.
4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4 o'clock's fine by me. I
that
just don't want to
okay?
do it in the morning.
Try it at 4, do a dry run on it, see what it does.
Okay, so are you suggesting, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
My only thought is about doing it at 4, though. If there's stuff for the general public, they may still be at work at 4.
Yeah.
That's my only reserve to that.
Well, 5 would be probably a little better.
I would think 5 would be very safe.
Okay, if you want to
I'm
go with
just
5,
worried about
I'm
the-
flexible on my thought.
I just don't want to take away the ability for somebody, one of the constituents, to come down here.
Right.
I don't think we'll have any hot items. I'm assuming no
yeah.
big subdivisions or whatever, I think it'll be probably a short meeting, but we could do it at 5. I don't have a problem.
Okay, so is that a motion to do it on April 15th at 5 o'clock?
5 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the April meeting from the 22nd to April 15th at 5 p.m. Any other discussion?
You gonna be home, Jay?
Yep.
Okay.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Number 10, items for next agenda.
We had talked about putting information about the federal funding that maybe isn't coming down for us. Maybe we could do it at that meeting, or maybe the May meeting if it's too tight for the April
I would do it at the
one.
May meeting, just
meeting?
because of the fact that it's only, 3 weeks away.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay, yeah, if we can stick that on in May, then that'd be great.
If you have anything, give the office a call. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 You were on top of that all
Opposed.
the time.
Motion carried. Thank you. We have